I, 26 female, am uncomfortable with the relationship between my fiancé, 28 male, and his best friend and bandmate, 27 female. I think it may have ruined our chance of being together. I've been with my fiancé Joe for a couple of years now. We have a great relationship. He's funny and talented, and we have a lot of fun together, but there's always been one big issue: Natalie. Joe and Nat are really close friends. It borders on unhealthy codependency for sure. When we met, they were living together too, but she was out of the country, so I didn't meet her until we'd been together for a couple months. They also work together, as they're artists and musicians. When we started dating, Joe gave me a disclaimer about them and their close relationship, but I didn't really know what I was getting into. Once I met her, I understood it. She is the prettiest person I've ever seen in my life. I heard a lot about her, but no one told me that she looked like an effing supermodel. It was jarring too, because Joe's just average. They started writing music again together and performing, which meant a lot of time alone. I was also under the impression that their band involved multiple people, but it's just the two of them. Natalie always invited me for practice and whatnot, but to be honest, being around them made me feel like a third wheel. Then I saw them perform, and for some reason they decided to cover this song, which I felt like a slap in the face to me, especially given the context of the movie. It's not even their genre, and I was extra upset because there's that line, "You can always come in my back door." And we have issues because I don't like anal, and she even bent over and gave a little wink, and it made me so effing mad. Joe laughed it off and said the song was funny and gets a good crowd response. And also they are affectionate. I mean, they're not kissing each other, but always close. Well, anyway, she ended up traveling a lot for a long period of time for some good career opportunity. I had to talk Joe out of joining her, and things got a lot better with us. We even got engaged, and it was great. Then for Christmas, we went out to his home country so I could meet his family, and things went sideways as F. First off, Nat was in every family photo, going back years. Then his mum was asking about Nat, and later saying she was going to be out to visit next week. Joe had a bit too much to drink at this point, and got emotional about that, saying he wished he would have known because he would have changed our plans. I pulled him aside and told him I wasn't comfortable with how into wine she was with his family, especially if we were going to get married. I asked if something could be done about that, and he laughed in my face and told me that I could be the one to try to bring that up to his mum. So I did, and his mum looked at me like I slapped her, and then the whole family got upset. Joe got really mad at me, and we left. Apparently she was a foreign exchange student or something, and they were immediately best friends. They were weird kids and didn't have other friends before each other. Every year they alternated staying with their families between Ireland and Germany. I never knew about this, but there were things, like we were watching a movie once and a character was speaking German, and Joe was able to translate. When I asked him what the hell he speaks German, he gave me a weird look and was like, "Yeah, that's where Nat's from." Then when they were teenagers and the two were in Ireland, Nat's family were killed back in their country, and so she stayed there with his family until they moved out together. And they've basically been side by side for 15 years plus. They lived together and went to school together, and then lived together and worked together since they were like 12. Apparently there was one school year their parents decided not to put them together, and they both became so hostile and began acting out with crime and drugs that their parents gave in. I don't know why I didn't know this, and I started to wonder what else. I asked if they slept together, and yes, they sure did. About 6 years ago for like a year, and then one night Nat kissed a guy, and Joe beat the crap out of him, and they got in a fight and decided sex was complicating things, and then just stopped. But then they also hooked up a few times since. I freaked out. After all the "she's like my sister" bull crap. Joe insisted that it didn't mean anything, but WTF? He kept saying that it was purely physical and there were no feelings. But if there weren't feelings, how did things get complicated then? Well, regardless, we managed to talk it out, but didn't go back to his parents. He argued that they were barely even friends anymore since he hasn't seen her in so long, and I did such a good job tearing them apart. I told him he asked me to marry him and should act like it. We fought for like 3 days until he got sick of it. Last week, he gets a call from her, and I hear him get upset and argue, and then he starts to leave. I ask him, what the hell? He just said Natalie's in trouble and he needs to go get her, and leaves. Just hopped on a plane and left, just like that. If I wouldn't have asked, he probably wouldn't even said a word to me. So naturally, I was pissed, and I started drinking and sent some angry messages. And I basically told him that if he was going to leave like that and run to her, he made it clear that he was choosing her over me and he shouldn't bother coming home. His response was just, okay, and that he would come back soon to get his stuff, which really pissed me off. Well, yesterday, I talked to our mutual friend Chloe, who told me that Natalie was in a bad situation and called Joe from the hospital. I felt kinda bad then and wondered why Joe didn't tell me that detail, so I called him. It wasn't a good conversation. I told him I understood why he left, but since she's okay now, he should come home. He disagreed and effing flipped out on me. Said that if I didn't keep them apart and put distance between them, she might have opened up to him about the crap she was dealing with, and he could have helped. He called me manipulative and jealous. I do feel bad, but I still think I didn't do anything that bad. Chloe told me she'd be surprised if Joe wants to work things out. I love him, but this situation is so weird. I just want some advice. Is our relationship salvageable? Is what I did that bad? Should we even bother, or should I just let him and Natalie do their weird, not a real couple bullcrap? Edit, I just found out she tried to be with him and he rejected her. And he didn't want to ruin their friendship. I'm so effing confused. And now in the comments, some relevant comments from OP. We got engaged before the family issues. Sorry if that wasn't clear. I was pretty upset when writing that. Since Christmas and the family thing, we've fought a lot. His mum tried to apologize for making me feel bad about Natalie, but I don't know how everyone is so blind to what the problems actually are. Everyone's just like, aw, look at them, they're such good friends. Like, excuse me? I feel bad for making Natalie look bad here. I really think she's kind of innocent in all of this. Apparently, she was violently attacked by one of her colleagues. She didn't call him to come get her, I don't think. She was understandably distraught and wanted to talk to him and felt like he should know what was happening. Based on his half of their convo that I overheard, she tried to talk him out of going to her, but he's protective and was really angry. I knew that they were friends since they were kids, and I knew she was close with his family. I just didn't know the extent of it. To be fair, he stopped including mentions of her when telling stories of his past to me because it was irritating that literally every story he mentioned involved Natalie. I thought those were just his favorite things to share, but it turns out it's because she's always been right there at every moment. I swear, the whole reason they ever even pursued the line of work that they did was so they didn't have to move on to real careers. I don't care what kind of trauma and crap they helped each other through, it is so unhealthy. He's gone, babe. He made his decision. No need to go back when he's made his choice about Nat and you, and he chose her. I know this sucks, but it's best to focus on yourself, your hobbies, your friends and family. Find that support and you'll be okay, but it still doesn't make the pain go away. Maybe if you decide to drink, have someone sober around you. That way you don't make bad, hasty decisions. You got this. I honestly don't even know why you'd want this to work. I'm exhausted and jealous, and it's not even my relationship. He made the choice to propose marriage, but that still doesn't mean more to him than this girl, and it never will. You want this to be your life? He'll never put you first, never respect your boundaries, and you'll never feel fully comfortable about their relationship. Move on and find someone who isn't so enmeshed with their bestie/adopted sister/former lover. OP replies, I think at this point I'm done with it. I guess I just wanted some validation that I'm not a crazy butthole like everyone else is making it sound like. The fact that he never mentioned that they had a sexual history to you and said she was like a sister is disrespectful enough for grounds to break up. That's a huge detail to leave out. This commenter is right. He will never put you first. Find someone who will. Everyone deserves that. Yup, and the "it was purely physical" part made me laugh. You don't something purely physical with your best friend / basically sister. That's much more than just physical. You should cease contact and move on. Stop asking your mutual friends about him. This guy isn't for you. He's always going to pick Nat whether he knows it or not. What you should do now is go hang out with your friends and enjoy your time with them. Do new things and learn new things. I'm bored of Joe's relationship with Nat, and I'm not even you. How you can deal with this, I have absolutely no idea. I think I'd have plain fallen out of love for this guy at some point. I can't imagine any amount of adoration I could have for someone who would be able to compensate for this. I'd leave them to their weird bullcrap. At no point has how you felt even mattered. And OP says, she was gone for a long time and things were finally good. I guess I was hoping that they'd keep drifting apart, but first Christmas, and now this. I'm exhausted. He's made some changes for me, and listened to me a little. I guess it's kind of unfair that I didn't mention it, but we had a few talks, and rules and boundaries were set, and they were mostly followed. Natalie was more respectful about it than Joe, to be honest. They were mostly followed, but he turned around and called you manipulative for them and accused you of tearing them apart. Natalie being more respectful than Joe is a huge issue. You weren't in a relationship with Natalie, and while it's good that she was respectful of your relationship, in fact, Joe was the one pushing boundaries he agreed to is an issue. Also, not being honest about their history with you, like the relationship with his family, how they met, their sexual history, his violence to her partner, none of that should have been left so late in your relationship that you were committed and engaged. And now, onto the update. Hi everyone, it's me, the one from yesterday's post about my now ex-fiancé. I just want to first say that I really appreciate everyone's input and suggestions. It helped me so much and gave me that push to finally address what I already knew what was needed to be done. A lot of people asked for updates, and a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, but the original post is locked, so I hope this is okay to post here. I've updated a few people through private messages and was told how to go about posting an update through here, so thank you everyone. Well, first off, I was angry and emotional yesterday, and I reached out to Sam, who used to date Natalie. I figured if anyone could relate to exactly what the hell I was dealing with, it would be him. So we met up for drinks. I'm not looking for a rebound or anything, I just wanted someone who really understands, and holy crap. Apparently he asked way more questions, and Natalie was way more open with him than Joe was with me, and it filled in some blanks, but also made things more confusing. Sam read the whole post and comments, and then we started talking. First thing he clarified was the time they were sleeping together. So, per Sam, they were hooking up secretly for that year, and from what Natalie told Sam, God, this is tiring. It started as a way to relieve tension and boredom. The first time happened during a fight, which is so on brand for them that if I wasn't so angry, I'd laugh at that. They agreed to keep emotions out of it and just have fun. Apparently Natalie said the sex was incredible because they were so close already, which is why they didn't just write it off as a one-time mistake. And then the reason the fight that ended things happened is Natalie is going to bring this other guy as her date with her to the party, and she made a joke like, "Unless you want to finally make this official?" And Joe's response was, "No, I can't ruin our friendship like that." Paraphrasing, maybe. So, Natalie went and brought that guy with, and then Joe got drunk and tried to kill him, so yeah. I don't know why Joe chose to leave out the details that he did. To be honest, it probably would have made me feel a little more comfortable. So he left out those details, but Natalie and Sam told those details, and admitted to Sam when they broke up that no one will ever mean more to her than Joe. I effing applaud Sam for not blowing that up and letting everyone know. I'm not that nice. You guys will be proud of me. After a few drinks with Sam, I took the advice that a lot of people gave me, but instead of just sending my last post to Joe, I sent it to our entire group chat that all of our friends are on, including Joe and Natalie, and then I waited. Most people didn't respond in the chat, but I started getting a lot of private texts from friends. But after a little while, Natalie responded, and I'll just copy her response here. Emma, I was going to talk to you privately, but since you decided doing things this way was your best option, I will follow suit. Joe is just average. This is how you talk about a man you're supposed to love, especially considering he is not just average? I had to talk Joe out of joining her, and it meant he missed out on a great opportunity just to appease you and your concerns. I even tried to invite you to come with us on the tour. You also mentioned him getting a real job and are rude about his talent. You have never supported him. Yeah, you came to one of our performances the whole time and hated that song, and we stopped playing it even though you never came to another one. I am sorry you didn't know the details of our friendship. I have tried to include you and be friends with you and build a relationship with you, but you were too jealous to accept my effort. But maybe we could have talked about things and made you feel comfortable. You didn't even like to hear him talk about me. You also made the implication that I did something drastic to get his attention to make him come out here, and that is cruel considering circumstances. I wish I would have been more around so I would have realized sooner that he deserves so much better than you. I was honestly shocked to get that response, and I was wondering why the hell she didn't even address the important stuff, like being in love or the fact that they've had sex. But anyway, chaos kinda broke out in the chat after that, and I didn't respond with anything. I just sat back and watched it all blow up. Well, Joe called me a little while after that and assured me he was alone. He was crying and apologizing to me, but not like begging for me back at all. He basically confirmed what I thought and everyone else was saying. He was apologizing for hurting me and straight up admitted he is totally in love with her and has been forever. They were even each other's first kiss. I told him I know she wanted a relationship with him. Sam told me, so what the hell was he doing with me? He said he didn't realize the extent of her feelings for him. He thought it was just because the sex was good. He didn't want to admit that he was madly in love with her, and basically he was worried that if they tried a relationship and things ended badly because she realized she could do better, their friendship would be ruined. He said their friendship was important enough to him that he would prefer being quietly in love with her forever to trying something and ruining it. And that's kinda where I came in, I guess. He says he was in major denial about his feelings for her, and he hoped it would be easier to have her as just a friend if he tried to put his energy into a different relationship. I cried and yelled a lot and called him a lot of names. I'm still shaking. He admitted it was a horrible thing to do to me and says he never wanted to hurt me. Basically, he's insecure, and it caused this whole frickin' crapstorm. Obviously, things are completely done. From what it sounds like, with Joe saying he didn't realize the extent of her feelings, it sure sounds like he does now. So maybe seeing this post made her fess up. Good for them, I guess. I effing hate both of them, and I hope they make each other insane. I've thrown out a lot of his crap, and instead of giving the ring back, I'm gonna go sell it and do something fun. Edit. A lot of people are calling them cheaters, but I would like to clear up that I'm 99.9% sure neither of them cheated on anyone, aside from their constant emotional affair. Some of my wording might be confusing, and I apologize. I've calmed down a bit, and I'm pretty worried about Natalie, to be honest. I feel like they're going to be together, and he's going to be all crazy and controlling, and things are going to get real messy. The emotions with these two are way too dramatic. She's so love-struck and blinded by his admission of his feelings that she's going to defend him to the end. Poor girl. And in the comments, from OP, I don't even want to look at either of them. I'm so effing disgusted. That's the least he owes me. Yes, there was a lot of gotcha texts flying and quite a bit of name-calling. Joe stayed out of it completely, but Natalie went on a rampage defending herself and Joe. No one had any idea, and they were frickin' called out for it. I feel so validated, to be honest. Natalie has always been really nice too. At least it seemed like it. But then she just freaked out and everyone gets to see it now. As angry as I am at everything right now, I do kind of agree with this. Natalie is usually a very nice person, and to be honest, I feel pretty bad for doing this while she's already dealing with crap. Can't really blame her for losing her cool. After hearing more of the story and knowing Joel rejected her years ago and then kept ruining her relationships and whatnot, is really rough. The tide has even shifted in the group chat to anger at Joe, but Natalie keeps defending him. She's blinded by his admission that he loves her and will probably fight everyone for him. They both have issues, and I bet once they're finally together, he's going to be super controlling and she's a free spirit, and it's going to be a mess. Good on you, OP, for getting out of this toxic cesspool of a relationship. Your ex is pathetic, and I'm sure if Natalie and he do make it official, it'll be a train wreck due to his insecurities and her delusions. Best wishes. And OP says, can't wait to hear about the divorce. They probably won't make it down the aisle, to be honest. A lot of people like the thrill of the chase or the forbidden fruit. But once the chase is over and the fruit is no longer forbidden, then the fun wears off. Whatever the case, you'll be much happier without either of them in your life. Good going, OP. Exactly. If you don't want to ruin the friendship, you don't screw. They did, and the sex was good, but they don't try to date properly? The secret thing was what they liked. Now they have the opportunity to be together. My guess is in 2 to 3 months, they'll start to fight or to mess around to recreate the thrill they had previously when not officially together. And now onto the final update in r/surviving infidelity. My ex-fiancé had a long emotional affair that started before we met. Hi there, Reddit. I previously came to this site for advice when I discovered uncomfortable truths about my ex, and we broke up about a week ago. Basically, his gorgeous best friend, adopted sister, bandmate, and him are madly in love. I ignored the signs and red flags that popped up constantly until I couldn't anymore, and he finally admitted his feelings to her after keeping them repressed since they were teenagers. I'm not sure what I'm posting for now. I'm a little drunk and really sad and angry, and most of my friend group were friends with them first. And after the initial drama, most of those friends have already switched to thinking, it's about time they're finally together. My family isn't too supportive. Not in a bad way, that's just the nature of my family. We get uncomfortable talking about emotional things, which is probably why I willfully ignored the issues with my fiancé, to be honest. I'm at a loss. He hasn't even picked up his stuff yet. I've been drinking and crying and obsessing over every detail of this whole screwed up situation. I feel like an idiot. Why did I stay for so long when he always put her before me? Why didn't I see what everyone else apparently did? He was just with me because he thought that it would help him move past his feelings for her. I feel so used and unloved. I do have plans to get into therapy for multiple reasons. What do I do? I know it's only been a few days, but when does this start to not hurt so badly? I loved him so much. Even when he flew out to her and abandoned me because she needed him, when I got upset and we fought, I still thought, how do I fix this? I'd be lying if I said I hadn't considered calling him, but it wouldn't do any good. Now that he has her, he'll never let her go. Not even that I want him back. I just don't know. I've never gone through this. There's an actual aching in my chest, and I know the drinking's bad, I don't know, I'm so effing hurt. In the comments, this may not be easy to hear at this time, but you dodged a bullet here. Think of it this way. Anyone who was with him did not stand a chance up against her, and it was not that you were not good enough. His problem was that he wasn't honest with himself. How could he be honest with anyone else if he couldn't admit it to himself? So again, that was not your fault either. Imagine yourself married to this partner years down the road, and then you found out. I'm not sure how much time you invested in your relationship, I don't think you said, but honestly, until we meet the one or the ones, yes, there are multiple people out there for us. Everything and everyone else is practice. Grieve, clean yourself up, and concentrate making yourself happy. Nothing is more attractive than a self-reliant person, and you will get there. He was practice for you. It'll hurt a bit for a while, but don't dwell on it, and when you do, we are here. Be well. It gets better if you let it. And OP replies, it was about 2 years ago that we were together, which doesn't seem that long, but I moved to a new state all by myself, and he was one of the first people I met, first guy I lived with, etc. It just feels like a really important time in my life that was wasted. I'm really struggling to not view it as wasted time and instead as a lesson learned. Mostly, I feel like such an idiot. The signs were all there and just screaming at me. They made jokes about being like a married couple without the sex. Then I found out they had sex, and before we met, I should say, I don't think there was physical cheating at all, just a hardcore emotional affair. Look, at some point in your life, this 2-year period is going to be a very tiny passing thought. Do not let it rule over you for the next few years. That was a mistake that many of us made, and I don't want you to be one of those people. 2 years is quite enough to form important, strong bonds with someone. Don't cut yourself short. But the main fact that you're able to put your trust in someone and love them fully says a lot about your character. You are destined to find your person. He is out there somewhere, also probably going through the trials of meh relationships. My husband regrets getting me pregnant. My husband of 7 years and I are expecting a baby, but he's lost almost all excitement, and it's breaking my heart. He has always wanted to be a baby daddy from the day that we started dating, but I have a long-term chronic illness, so we made sure this little baby was very planned, and we had everything set up to help me face the challenges that come with a harder pregnancy. At first, he was so excited, falling asleep with his hand on my tummy and just genuinely over the moon, but then I started to get sick. All that love and excitement turned to fear, and he blames himself. I keep trying to tell him that I knew all of this could happen before we started trying, and I made the choice to go through with this. He keeps saying, if it's you or the baby, I'm saving you. I can't live without you. And, you could have happily lived your life with a pack of dogs and me. This is my fault. And it just breaks my heart. He said, pregnancy is meant to be a magical experience, and this is anything but magic. He's already planned to get a vasectomy, and he doesn't want another baby or to try again if this one doesn't make it. I know it hasn't been easy on him watching me get everything that could go wrong in a pregnancy go wrong for me, and I know he feels helpless, but I'm scared he's resenting our baby for putting me through this. I wish there was some way I could reassure him and get his excitement back. All I can do is let him help me in any way that makes him feel like he has some control in a situation where no one can control what's going to happen next. I wish I wasn't sick, but that's just part of who I am, and he unfortunately fell in love with the sick girl. We're each other's whole world, and I hate that I can't give him the magical experience that he wanted. I wish I was magic. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. In the comments, pregnancy is brutal to a woman's body, a woman who doesn't have other complications. As a society, we need to start telling the truth to people about things like this. I had many women telling me preeclampsia is nothing to worry about for months. It almost killed my wife. OP says, I really hope I don't get preeclampsia as well, but they have me on high monitoring for it. I get tests every 2 to 3 weeks, and my midwife comes to my home and is on call for any concerns. Catch anything new early and hope for the best is our motto. I'm glad your wife pulled through. Pregnancy isn't always magical like we're shown on TV. It's scary, and it's not normal to like seeing your partner suffer. My husband felt the same way at the end of my twin pregnancy when I was having problems. There were definitely times where we thought, wow, did we do the right thing? Maybe we shouldn't have gotten pregnant. Your whole life is changing, and it's a huge deal, and it's not always easy to accept when it doesn't look like the magic that you envisioned. Once the little bundle of joy is here, it all fades away pretty quickly, and you can't imagine how you felt your life was ever complete without them. Hugs. Tell him you love him and can't wait to have his baby. I think he may feel bad and guilty for you feeling sick and having issues. And OP says, I tell him this every day. I'm gently trying to support him through this. He's always so good at being my rock when I get flare-ups or end up in hospital, so I think it's only fair that I be there for him. I know he's scared that he'll lose us both, and I'm hoping when we come out the other side with a little baby, all his anxiety fades and he allows himself to feel excited again. Can one of your doctors help talk to him? I asked him if he would like to talk to someone, and he just said, nothing to talk about. We aren't doing this again, and we're doing everything we can to make it through. We've got this. I'm his emotional support and the only person he's let in or been vulnerable with. So I've just got to step up and be there for him and let him know that he is doing a great job. I might need to talk to someone though. It's hard when your body fights you and fails you. And now, onto the update. So I had a chat with my husband, like a lot of you suggested, and I think we both feel a little bit better. He told me how excited he is, and that he loves our little baby already so much, it's just hard for him to see the love of his life struggle. He believes once the baby and I are all in the clear and are making a full recovery, all that fear and anxiety will go away. He apologized for worrying me because he's worried about me, and explained that it's just hard because he sees me at my most vulnerable when it's too much, and I can't hide how hard it is. I explained to him how even very healthy people can have a lot of problems during pregnancy, and that my body is doing far better than we expected. Our medical team is really happy with where I am and how we're coping, and that I understand it's the unknown that is causing the anxiety. He seems a lot lighter now, and we've really gotten to the root of his worries. Hopefully I can carry our little one full term, another 8 to 10 weeks, but if the worst happens, I had a big flare-up that triggers early labor, baby is at 30 weeks and has a large medical team ready for them at any given moment, so the odds are very in baby's favor. I did just want to address a few questions people have had to put your mind at ease. My condition isn't genetic, so baby is perfectly healthy, and we get scans and testing done to monitor him and me to make sure he is still happy swimming around in there. We have spoken to 3 specialists and done years of research before considering all options. One specialist suggested the hormones your body creates while pregnant could possibly reprogram my neural pathways and help my condition. It's a very slim chance. So we chose to try once before going down the adoption route. My husband is very serious about the vasectomy, and I respect his choice. And we've decided that if we want another child down the line, we will either adopt or open our home to foster care. I'm pretty sure that's all I've got for now. I've been requested to update when baby comes along and let you know how I do. Keep all the positive thoughts for me. I know I've definitely planned for the worst, but I'm expecting the best. Thank you for all the chatting to me and sharing your stories. It genuinely helped to see that we weren't alone in feeling this and that others have made it through. I value your input so much. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my therapist's name and number? So I've, 34 male, been going to this therapist for 2 years now, and I'm very happy with her. Over the weekend, my mother texted me asking for my therapist's number for her friend. I told her that I would give her the number for the company that my therapist works for, but that I didn't feel comfortable handing over my therapist's information because it's private. My mother responded with a sad story about her friend and how she wants to recommend my therapist for her because my mother's therapist is retired. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable giving that out, and even if I did, my therapist would most likely refer her friend to go through the company's intake program. I also told my mother that this made me uncomfortable and that I didn't appreciate her trying to guilt me into providing this information. She responded by guilting me even further and saying how she assumed that I'd want to help her friend when I heard her story. It's my birthday today, and my mother has not even wished me a happy birthday, but continues to make this an issue by texting me at work. I don't feel like the butthole, but it's also really got me down. So, am I wrong? Edit, just got into a fight with my father and have effectively told both of them to F off. I am seethingly angry right now, and birthday is effectively ruined. Going to go home tonight and order something really delicious off of Grubhub and play with my dog who loves me unconditionally. Edit 2. Wow, y'all. I didn't think I'd get any attention on this post, and all day and night it's been one notification after the other with so much support. I am literally sitting here tearing up and so thankful to have had this much support from this community. It may have been a really awful birthday, but I feel super vindicated and taken care of right now. For anyone who was concerned, I did reach out to my therapist and asked if we could talk. While she couldn't talk, she offered up a slot for tomorrow, which I'm going to take. Edit 3, I don't know if anyone is still checking this, but it's cathartic for me to scream into the void this way. I screenshotted everything and I sent it to my therapist. I'm going to be completely open and honest because if there is something I did wrong, I want to be willing to open up to it. Today has been hard, but I've decided that I'm not going to speak with my parents, at least until I have a session with my therapist. I don't know if the relationship can be mended at this point though. I've also been open and honest with some of my closer friends and disclosed this posting to them in the hopes that I don't have to relive every minute detail when answering their questions. In the comments, quote, I told her I would give her the number for the company that my therapist works for, but that I didn't feel comfortable handing over my therapist's information because it's private. Not the a-hole, it is private. You at least gave her the number for the company. You are not obligated to give the information for your exact therapist you were seeing. Don't fall for the guilt trip. It's a deliberate ploy to try and manipulate, and the fact that your mother is hyper-focused on this specific piece of information is a bit suspicious, to the point where she's forgotten to wish you a happy birthday. It's a bit of a far-fetched leap, but is there anything your mother might gain from contacting your therapist? Maybe keep that in the back of your mind, and perhaps it may be pertinent to notify your therapist/administration that your mother is inquiring about them and what you want them to do if she does ask. But just keep at this strategy. Happy birthday. And OP says, I forwarded the text conversation from yesterday to my therapist seeking some help because we aren't scheduled to meet for another 3 weeks. We typically meet every 2 weeks, but she has to cancel next week's appointment. I haven't forwarded today's text messages because it's really gotten me down to receive this kind of a message on my birthday, and just the thought of reading it again, even if it's just to take a screenshot, makes me feel very depressed. Not the a-hole. It's highly unlikely that a therapist would take a direct call to their number without going through the intake process. There is insurance and info gathering to take care of. Not the a-hole, your mother is being very invasive. I agree with your take that she's trying to guilt you into giving her information about your life. The company number should have been enough for her. Your mother doesn't need the contact information of your therapist to help her friend get the mental health care that she needs. There is nothing about your therapist that makes her any better for her friend than all the other therapists in the company's network. This is a manipulation tactic to try and weasel information out of your therapist, which, if your therapist doesn't want to be in breach of confidentiality, they won't do. This is a control tactic. And now on to the update. So I've been seeing some follow-ups being posted, and I figured I'd share this one in case anyone was curious. So obviously, things were very bad with my parents following this episode. I went no contact with them for approximately 4 or 5 months. It didn't start off as no contact, but things progressed to the point where I told them they were no longer to reach out to me, and if they showed up at my condo, to which they had a key, I would call the police and have the locks changed. My mum took this particularly hard. She really didn't understand what she had done that was wrong, which was beyond frustrating. She had sent messages and emails trying to justify herself. I felt extremely upset about going no contact, but ultimately found it to be a liberating experience. I ended up reconnecting with my sister, whom I thought was not speaking to me, but it turned out my phone was not sending me push notifications when she would message me on WhatsApp. She lives in a different country. So anyway, in June or July of last year, I reached out to my parents and explained that we could have a phone call, but that it was not going to be a two-way conversation. I was going to do all the talking initially, and if they wanted to, I'd give them the opportunity to respond at the end. I was very clear, though, that this was an opportunity for me to explain why what had happened had affected me so deeply and why I was so angry with them. The call actually went much better than anticipated. They were silent and listened, and the few times they started to speak up, I reminded them that this was not currently a two-way street. My mother played the whole situation off as a misunderstanding, although I don't buy it. My father didn't realize I wasn't speaking to him either. He thought it was just my mother who I was angry with, but he can be a little emotionally shallow, so I'm not that surprised. Following the phone call, I agreed to see them again on limited terms. It's taken some work, but we're back in a good place. I still think about last year, and I think about how this community helped me from going over the deep end, so I wanted to say thank you. Edit, and if anyone's curious how the birthday ended up going, I blew about $250 on myself on Grubhub, and one of my college friends organized an impromptu Zoom session with one of our groups of friends across the country to sing happy birthday to me after I called to discuss the situation. We had been together when I was visiting them that weekend when the conversation with my mother first started. In the comments, I don't mean to laugh at your situation at all, but you going 4 to 5 months of no contact with your parents and your dad not realizing that he was included in that is the most stereotypical dad thing I have ever heard. And OP says, no, it's cool. Laugh at that because it's as ridiculous as it sounds. Reminds me of calling my parents, having my dad answer, and him immediately asking, do you want to talk with your mother? Maybe it's because we are Latin, but if I call my mum, my dad would call me and ask, in a completely offended way, hey man, I'm dad, do you remember you have one of those? And then end the call so I can call him, and he starts like nothing happened because I'm the princesita. He is so jealous. I read the first story in the update, and I've yet to find out what did the parents do to deserve this horrible treatment. I mean, you sound very snowflakey. I got a similar feeling, but I suspect the answer is that they'd already had a really strained relationship, and this was just the last straw. Consider the mum's motivation here. There's only a few options that make sense. One is that the mum wanted to pressure the therapist into sharing information on OP's private sessions, which is actually really serious, even as a one-off. Another option is that the mum was being honest about the referral for the friend, which implies she doesn't understand what a reasonable expectation of, for a friend, is, and likely makes unreasonable demands on a regular basis. And OP says, you hit it right out of the park. My mum has suffered from mental health issues for decades, and I have always been the one to put her before myself, even to my own detriment. I was taking care of her when I was still in high school. A lot of my therapy has dealt with my familial relationships, and that was my biggest concern. My therapist and I had several subsequent conversations where I explained that it didn't matter that I knew she couldn't and wouldn't disclose our sessions. I had this irrational fear that the two of them would start talking. It took me over a year to fully open up and start really digging into some of my more personal stuff with my therapist, and that was because of my irrational fears of my therapist talking about my issues with anyone. I was wondering what exactly your concern was when reading the post. Like, did your mum even have a friend? Or did she want the information so she could book an appointment with your therapist to give her side of things and make you out to be the bad guy? That is 100% something my mother would do, which is why she doesn't know that I was in therapy years ago. And OP replies, a lot of people in the original post speculated that the friend wasn't real. She was. It was my mum's hairstylist, or that the problems weren't real. The topic was dropped like a brick when we reconciled, so I still don't know what the truth of the situation was. I can also see the whole I do not want you to Google what therapist specializes in. You can refer someone to your hospital per se, but once you give the doctor's information, you are then giving up sensitive info. As in, you could see someone for a broken bone, or be seeing someone because you have cancer, but wouldn't know from the hospital's name. And it's beyond odd that she kept pushing the issue. It's 100% not yours, or even your mum's problem, to find a good therapist. And therapist may be good for person A, but person B does not click with them. And there are X many therapists that specialize in different issues. I'm guessing she was trying to be very nosy about the whole thing, and no friend indeed. And a side note, I would be very annoyed as the friend. Like, hello, do not be telling every frickin' one that I want a therapist. I asked for your therapist name, not for you to tell everyone to find me one. Friend asks mum, I'm looking for a good therapist. Do you recommend yours? And mum says, no, she's retired. And then friend talks to a different person for a recommendation. After everything blew up, I called one of her friends who has always been a second mother to me, and we talked for a long time. She'd only heard half of the story and had told her that she had crossed a huge line and needed to apologize immediately. The conversation was actually before the big birthday blow-up. Allegedly, my mum got huffy and ended the conversation when she wasn't told what she wanted to hear. My mother also claimed in her long and cruel text message that she had done everything with input and support from her own therapist. I never found out if that was the truth, but it always struck me as a lie that a therapist would support such behavior. Am I the a-hole for choosing my budget over my boyfriend this Halloween? I need some perspective here. This whole thing is so out of control. I, 28 female, own my own house, and my boyfriend, 29 male, moved in January. We had a ton of early money arguments and agreed that we would keep to a household budget. Also, he agreed to pay down his credit card debt. I have more flexibility in my personal spending than he does. Early after we moved in, my boyfriend told me that as a kid, he always wanted to live in one of those houses that were totally decorated for trick-or-treat and handed out full-sized candy. Here is where I messed up. I took this as a comment and not a plan. When the end of September came, we went to the Halloween store and he was under the impression that we had savings for this. I didn't know. We go over the monthly budget together and it was never listed. When he found out that there was no Halloween savings, we had an argument. Afterwards, I talked to friends who all said he had talked about trick-or-treat extensively and how much it meant. I chalked this one up to a misunderstanding on my part, so I came up with $500 of my money and I went to him with an apology. He decided to buy one big piece, an animatronic clown and some lights. It burned through the $500, plus he put a little on his own credit card. He wanted another big piece and was mad that I wouldn't put it on my credit card. I then asked if he wanted to put up handmade decorations or spiderwebs, but he said that it would look cheap. A few weeks later, we had a fight over candy. He was still stuck on buying full-size bars. We easily get over 250 trick-or-treaters, and I said we just don't have that much money. So we got the bulk bags of good small bars. I also had these little coloring books for all the allergy and diabetes kids. Jump forward to Halloween, and early kids show up and he is letting them grab handfuls. I remind him that we have a ton of trick-or-treaters coming, and he got really annoyed. I had ordered a pizza for us, so I get it and go inside for about 10 minutes. By the time I came back out, the trick-or-treat balls were empty. He had been dumping a third of a ball in each kid's bag and had given out all the coloring books to whatever kids came along. He told me that I'd have to go run out and buy more candy on my credit card. I said I wasn't going to do that, and it wasn't my fault that he just handed out 20 pounds of candy. He started yelling right there in front of the kids, and I told him to come inside. He responded that he wasn't stopping trick-or-treating even if there was no candy. I told him to have fun with the clown then, and went inside. He came in 15 minutes later, then he demanded that I leave for the night so that he could clear his head. He argued it was fair because I had already eaten, and it was my fault the trick-or-treat was ruined because I'm cheap. I handed the rest of the pizza to him and refused. He left and went to a friend's house, and I guess they spent the rest of the night drinking, handing out trick-or-treat candy, and texting me how awful and cheap I am. Am I the a-hole? In the comments, not the a-hole. It sounds like he isn't able to financially support himself, you already support him financially, you do more in the sense of organization, responsibility, and planning. He expects you to realize his dreams without having to lift a finger. Please tell me this guy at least does half the chores. OP is not the a-hole, but surely is an ATM. At this point, him getting angry all the time to get you to pay for stuff is manipulation. Why did you let him move in? Do not take him back in. In addition, the fully tricked out houses aren't the result of shopping one September and buying thousands of dollars of decorations. They are a slow accumulation of trinkets over many years. This isn't just about Halloween decorations, but all of the outside and the inside accessories. These expenses will accumulate into the tens of thousands over the years. This in itself is evidence that boyfriend is living in a fantasy world as far as financial responsibility is concerned. Although, compared to all the other very clear signs, this is just a small issue. We decorate minimally inside, but we decorate outside a lot. We started 12 years ago and have slowly added and subtracted from our collection of Halloween decorations, a lot of it purchased at a deep discount right before or after Halloween. We don't do inflatables, but we still have a lot of stuff. Buying it all at once would have been way beyond a sane budget. I would never spend $500 on one decoration. Quote, he was under the impression that we had savings for this. No, he wasn't, because he didn't contribute to any savings for this. He was under the impression that you were going to cave and pay for it. And she did too, just not to his expectations. $500 is a lot of money to hand over for Halloween. It's a lot to give for any non-necessity. He should have been listening to her and treating her like a queen, not the a-hole, and you need to run from this man. Making fun of how cheap you are when he is living in your house that you own? Absolutely not. Tell him he can get the hell out. Who is he to tell you to leave your own home? I am livid for you, girl. You need a man, not this child. I am so mad on OP's behalf. Cheap after dropping $250 on candy and $500 on his stupid decoration? This guy sucks. OP, he will drain every penny from you always. Do not stay with him unless you want to be broke for the rest of your life. And then he had the audacity to tell her to leave her own damn house. And now, onto the update. 3 months ago, basically the whole internet told me to break up with my boyfriend. 2 days ago, I finally ended it. Everyone, and I do mean everyone online, basically said that I was in the right and said some truly dire things about my relationship. I won't lie, there was so much anger towards him, I sort of shut down. When I started getting requests from actual news sources for more information, I just basically logged out and just decided to forget anything ever happened. We met the next day, as he had spent a few nights at a friend's house. I said that for the things to continue, we needed couples counseling, and I expected him to set the whole thing up. He was surprisingly open to this and said he would work on it, and that's where things started to unravel. Our mutual friends had been really in his corner, bitching me out. But I found out the story that he had told them was way off from the truth. In his version, I prevented any money for Halloween and had gone cheap on trick-or-treat candy and was only handing it out to the children that I liked. Once they sort of heard my version, backed up with pics and receipts, support went to me. In fact, his friends have been giving him a lot of ribbing about how he acted, which my now ex hates. In the meantime, he has been working on getting us counseling, but found that getting therapy on his insurance meant months-long waiting lists. So instead, he came up with this couples coach who was religious. I'm not religious and wasn't thrilled by this, but I figured that it was better than nothing. Our first meeting was only 3 days after I posted. One funny thing that came up was that my ex immediately handed over a printout of the household budget, and the coach praised it. But the coach thought that my ex was the one who wrote it, and that I was failing to follow it. So what followed was this weird thing where my ex wanted all the praise, but also wanted the coach to badmouth the budget because my ex hates it. It took the better part of the first session to explain to him the actual situation, and the coach was weird about the fact that it was the woman in the relationship dictating money, even though he liked the budget itself. The next day, one of our friends found the Reddit post and sent it to my ex. All hell broke loose with him saying that I had betrayed his trust. Our next couples coaching session was all about that, and honestly, I felt terrible for airing his dirty laundry. The coach and my ex both crapped on me a ton in this time that I had publicly humiliated my ex. Obviously, I'm updating, so I don't care about embarrassing my ex anymore. He has this username and will probably read this. Whatever. One thing that was seemingly positive at first about the coaching was the coach pointed out that my ex had never had the ability to have holiday traditions because of his upbringing. I genuinely felt bad about this, and rolling into Christmas, made a huge attempt to incorporate him into my family's traditions and to ask if there was anything he wanted to do. He responded by shitting all over my family's traditions, and his only contribution was to suggest something really extravagant that would have cost a fortune. I swear he only did this just to badmouth me when I said no. This was all bookended by our twice-a-week visits to the couples coach, who I increasingly hated. He would go through super religious prayers and having issues with us living together before marriage. Neither my ex nor I responded positively to this. But my ex would get really into it when the coach would talk about more misogynistic men as the head of the household stuff. When I said I'd prefer moving to a regular therapist, my ex said that I was undermining his work getting us help. There's a dozen little things that happened in there where I should have broken up, but last week was the real final straw. Ever since my ex found the post that I'd made on Reddit, he has been obsessed with going through my phone. Because of my career, I wouldn't let him. I have a lot of emails and accesses on my phone that is sensitive information in regards to work. I made a compromise that he could ask who I was texting, etc., and I'd show him at any point. But this wasn't good enough. I don't know how he got into my phone, but he went through it fully and started raging out that I was keeping things from him, but none of it had any relation to him. Like, I had a group chat where we were planning a wedding shower for a friend. He's only met this friend in passing. He knew that I was helping plan it, but was mad that I hadn't let him know every little detail. Specifically, we were surprising the bride by flying in her aunt, who she rarely sees. I wasn't contributing to this financially, I just knew about it. And somehow my not telling him that specific little thing was keeping secrets. We were still fighting over this when we went to a party with friends. Apparently, in digging through my old chats, he found where a friend of mine had talked to me in confidence of a tragedy she went through. Only her husband and sisters were really in the know. My ex was drunk and started talking about this loudly to her with her husband right there. Her husband told her to shut up, and my ex basically got all superior about knowing things and there not being secrets. It was very close to being a fight. I told him not to come back to my house after that, and he seems really shocked that we broke up. I'm still numb about all of this, but yeah. Him? Never again. And now in the comments, I'm still hung up on the part where he spent almost $1,000 of her money and then had the audacity to blame and ask her to leave her own house. The initial obsession with Halloween appearances screamed trying to fix childhood trauma. Every subsequent action this man took just showed a complete lack of socialization and examples of normality. I'm glad that OP eventually realized his issues are beyond her pay grade. He is still a wounded kid with insufficient impulse and emotional regulation. It must really suck to try and get through life that way. Sounds like OP was super understanding of a lot of what he was going through, including acting like his mum when he acted like a child. But in the end, he had to throw all that support away because his pride got wounded, and there was no coming back from that without hurting OP as much as he could. He needs to grow up. Hopefully he's still young enough to find his way. Even without the trauma part of his childhood, just being raised in an environment where you spend the money as soon as you can have it is a hard cycle to break. My husband comes from that kind of background, and it took quite a while to get him to start using impulse control in regards to spending. I come from a family of savers, so it drove me nuts. Not to the degree of what OP dealt with, but it was still very different mentalities. Thankfully, my husband saw the wisdom in letting me manage the finances from the beginning of our marriage. It drives me crazy when religious people pull that head of the household BS. And I say this as a religious person, lol. I won't go down that particular rabbit hole on my opinions. That would take too long. Head of the household my ass, you're supposed to help by taking part of the mental and physical load for an equitable situation, not force your partner to do all the work and then claim authority. Men are the head of the household? Not if it's not their frickin' house, idiot. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving my boyfriend and his friends behind after agreeing to be the designated driver? So my 33 female, boyfriend 33 male of 4 years is a big football fan, and he has a tradition of meeting up with his high school friends at a bar for Super Bowl every year. It's often the only time in a year that he gets to see some of these friends because they're super busy with their families and life. I don't like football, so I'm happy to be able to drop him off somewhere, have an evening to myself, and pick him up when he's ready to come home. He tends to go hard with the alcohol when he's out with this group. Last night, my boyfriend texted me that he was almost ready to be picked up, so I headed to the bar. He wasn't as ready as he made it seem, so I ended up going and sitting down with them while everyone finished their round of drinks. He was pretty drunk and started getting handsy in a way that I wasn't comfortable with out in public, so I politely asked him to stop. I didn't want to make a scene, so I leaned in to whisper into his ear, asking to stop. He got angry and whispered back, "You should consider yourself lucky that I'm going home with you. I could go home with any woman here if I wanted to." He couldn't, but he's always been a dreamer. I was taken aback as he's never said anything like that to me before. I get he was drunk, but still. Anger set in and I excused myself as if I was going to the bathroom. I ended up leaving and I texted him to let him know I left. Unfortunately, he had arranged for me to drive two of his friends home too. Wouldn't have been an issue, but he also hadn't communicated that with me. Instead of calling an Uber or taxi like I assumed he would, one of his friends called his wife. The wife had to wake up their toddler to go and pick them up. My boyfriend was furious when he came home, and still is this morning. He slept on the couch and we had an argument before he left for work. He says I embarrassed him by just up and leaving. He vehemently denies saying what he did, doesn't recall getting handsy, and insists he wasn't that drunk last night. I also got an angry text from the wife saying that I was a butthole for leaving them drunk and stranded, forcing her to wake up her toddler to go and pick them up. She also had a vague passive-aggressive Facebook post up calling me out. Now I'm questioning whether I overreacted. Maybe I should have just brushed off his comment because he was drunk and followed through on the commitment that I made. I just felt so disrespected by what he said after I asked him to stop doing something that was making me uncomfortable. So, am I the a-hole for leaving my drunk boyfriend and his friends stranded after the Super Bowl? Edit, to answer a few common questions and comments, he has never said anything like he did to me before. He can push my boundaries from time to time, but he has always respected them when I've said no or stop. We've had a really solid relationship up until this point, but this has left me with a lot of questions. He doesn't go out often, but when he does, he usually binge drinks, especially with the group last night. He reverts to high school/frat boy mode. This was his high school group of friends that I have limited interaction with. I've got my group of friends, and then we also have our group of couple friends. I don't know the wife at all except for a couple of dinners over the years. Truthfully, his high school friends aren't my cup of tea, so I don't interact with them much. The reason I decided to just slip away and text him was because I didn't want to make a scene. After what he'd said when I tried to set boundaries, I couldn't predict how he'd react. I didn't want him shouting or saying something else demeaning out loud, and he was very unpredictable last night. It seems the wife wasn't told the whole story. I did respond to her text with an apology and explanation. That went so well that she left me on read and has left the Facebook status up. Speaks more to her at this point. I didn't know until I got to the bar to pick him up that I was also driving his friends home. In normal circumstances, it wouldn't have been an issue at all. A heads up would have definitely been nice, but I probably should have ensured rides were arranged for them before leaving. I've decided to stay with a close friend for a few days to figure things out. My boyfriend and I have built a life together, but I'm not sure that we can recover from this. I don't want our relationship to be contingent on stopping drinking or no longer hanging out with this group of friends or the promise that it won't happen again. From experience, ultimatums don't work and they lead to resentment. In the comments, not the a-hole. Growing up with an alcoholic teaches you that what they say when they're drunk is what they really think all the time, just now the filters are gone and they say it. I'm sick of people excusing drunk people saying awful crap. The booze didn't create the words, the booze set them free. Yep, amen to that one. I agree with what you're saying, but would just like to add that it's not always the case. Sometimes the booze creates words. I drink like 4 times a year, and when I'm really drunk, I tell people that my pillows lie to me. My dad was an alcoholic, so I can relate. Sometimes people just chat drunken crap. It doesn't make drink an excuse for their behavior in this post, though. Yup. When my dad drinks, he'll do anything to start a fight, including saying inflammatory crap that just isn't true. I know it's lies because he was 2 wildly different people before and after a TBI. Saying that he always felt a certain way just wasn't going to be true. As narcissistic as alcoholics can act, I've never met one that didn't actually hate themselves to the core. A big part of continuing to be able to drink is pushing people away so they don't want to help you. Not the a-hole. Unless you stay with your boyfriend. Then you'd be an a-hole to yourself. He caused the first issue by asking you to get him and then disrespecting you by not being ready when you got there. You were very accommodating to stay as long as you did. Strike 1. Then he made you uncomfortable and told you that you should be grateful for it because he could just leave you? That's 100% him being an a-hole. Strike 2. Then he has the audacity to be angry with you, denying how big of a butthole he was and failing to defend you to his friends and friend's wife? She's justifiably upset and no doubt was lied to about why you left. She's upset with the wrong person, but that's your boyfriend's fault. Strike 3. I'm sure you could list some sort of nice qualities he has that wouldn't be mentioned here. I don't see how they would redeem his disrespect. And now, onto the update, as requested by some. First off, thank you to everyone who took the time to respond. I read as many of your comments as I could. Thank you for sharing some of your stories, and I wish I could hug each of you that were, or are, in my situation. I really appreciated the support, and also some of the honesty in the a-hole judgments. Some of what happened could have been handled differently. I acknowledge that me leaving without saying anything wasn't the best decision in hindsight, but at that moment, it was the only decision I felt I had, given the shock of what happened and the flight response that it triggered. I've done a whole lot of reflection. I don't know why this incident was the catalyst, because looking back, there is a lot that I let slide at the cost of my self-worth. I had my blinders on, and I ignored things that I shouldn't have, which I'm embarrassed to admit. However, I still felt like we could work through things. At the very least, we needed to talk. I had hoped that we could have an open conversation about what happened, and ideally, a plan to move forward. So my boyfriend and I met up today for the Valentine's dinner we had reservations for. The dinner was pretty emotional and didn't go as I'd hoped. I apologized for leaving his friend stranded as a way of me showing him that I took responsibility for my actions, even though I feel even more justified thanks to you all. But he unfortunately wasn't willing to do the same. He still denies doing anything and saying what he did, despite remembering everything else that happened while he was at the bar. And he actually doubled down again about me embarrassing him. Now, not only by leaving them at the bar, but for also having the audacity to respond back to his buddy's wife. He said that they were his friends, and I had no business airing our dirty laundry to them or involving them in our issues. I just can't comprehend how someone who supposedly loves me can't accept responsibility for his actions, or at the very least, acknowledge that he hurt me. He obviously doesn't respect me. It's done and over. I can't do it anymore. We're going to go our separate ways, and I told him as much. We own a house together, so it's going to be a process, but I feel oddly content with my decision. So thanks again to all you internet strangers that lifted me up and offered supportive words. I could not have walked out of the restaurant so confident in my decision if it wasn't for you guys. I'm back at my friend's place now with a hot cup of tea and Women's Worth by Alyssa M. on repeat. As the lyrics say, holy crap, I'm tired of loving a man who acts like a child, and holy crap, I'm done with losing my mind just to love someone. And I am done. In the comments, he remembers everything but his aggravation and cruel comments. Yeah, I don't buy it. He knows what he said, but he probably thinks he was justified. Considering his "she's lucky to have me" attitude while sober, everything adds up. He clearly puts her below everything else in his life. OP dodged a bullet. I wouldn't assume that bullet is fully dodged yet. Man-child co-owns a house with her. Breaking that up is going to be a proper hassle, I suspect, especially if it's his primary residence and he neither wants to sell nor buy her out. If this has to go to court, she'll be dealing with this guy for a while yet. OP got a glimpse into her future. She was a girlfriend ready to pick up her drunk boyfriend. In the future, she would have been a wife taking care of her toddler alone and being woken up in the middle of the night because her drunk husband can't order an Uber. Good call from OP to get out. Even if what the boyfriend said was true and he doesn't remember, it doesn't change that he still hurt OP, and the fact that he can't be adult enough to own up to that speaks volumes. Well, he was a piece of crap when he wasn't drunk as well. Cool. That trash pile is deservedly kicked to the curb. Imagine being blackout drunk and then the day after, gaslighting your sober girlfriend about what happened. That's some stunning self-confidence. He wasn't blackout drunk though. He remembered everything except the comments that made her justifiably upset. At no point should she have to tell him she's leaving before she did. He was already breaking boundaries and couldn't be expected to maintain them. She's in a group of drunk men. That would be scary and threatening for anyone. She made the correct choice. F that guy, and good on her for leaving him. Am I the a-hole for refusing my brother and his pregnant wife? I, 21 female, have a boyfriend, 22 male, of 3 years, who has ASPD. My sister-in-law, who is 5 months pregnant, is scared of him and wants me to end my relationship. After her pestering me for days and me trying to reassure her that I have a support system and my boyfriend will be completely cut off from her child, she still wouldn't stop texting me every day to break up. My boyfriend and I decided to fake break up until the baby is born. Today I was running an errand for my brother and his wife. Sister-in-law asked me if I'm still seeing my boyfriend, to which I answered no. She told me that I made the right decision and said that she can finally have a peaceful sleep. She kept talking about how her stress level has been going up because of my affair, and she's glad that she won't have to raise a kid in the presence of my boyfriend. This is where I might be the butthole. Sister-in-law asked me if I'll move in with them, and I answered with a simple no. And when she said she hasn't stated the reasons for her request and asked me to hear her out, I told her, I don't really care about your reason, I just won't move in with you. And I walked out of her house. She texted me, saying that it's unfair and cruel of me to be upset at her for trying to do what is best for everyone. She wanted me to stay with them so she can keep an eye on me, and that I put her under lots of stress, which is bad for pregnancy. I feel like the a-hole, but I also think she's pushing me too much. In the comments, not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law is trying to manipulate you into being her live-in help. First by making sure you are single, and next by getting you to move in. Don't lie to her anymore, and block her number. Tell her you won't be letting his wife harass you anymore. OP retorts, I told my brother about it, and honestly, I don't think he has any solution. I will suggest taking her to therapy. My honest opinion? Quit treating the sister-in-law like she's above everyone else. You're a grown-ass woman, and you can date who you please. Her having a miscarriage years ago gives her no right to act this way. It seems you and your family have made her think that she's the boss of everything, and she's to be treated like a child. She's manipulative and overall weird. Her behavior is more concerning than your boyfriend's. You need to cut contact with them and grow a little and learn to be without them. She is toxic, and so is the rest of your family for feeding into it. Quit treating her like she's calm or rational because her behavior is unhinged. Stop this fake breakup nonsense or indulging anything from her that is about your life. I would tell brother that you will not talk to her or deal with her until she stops and apologizes to you. Then suggest that she talks to a therapist. Pregnancy psychosis, while rare, does exist. Even if this isn't psychosis, her demands are unreasonable and nutso. Not the a-hole, but only if you stop the fake breakup. Sounds like she's trying to strip you of a support system so you can help with her kid, but there is likely more to this story. Why do they know about your boyfriend's diagnosis? Has he ever acted towards them in a way that might be concerning, where they would have a cause for concern for their child? OP replies, 2 weeks ago, my parents hosted a family dinner/get-together, and they invited their children and their spouse. Me, my boyfriend, my elder brother, his wife, and my little brother, and while we were chatting, the topic shifted to mental health. My boyfriend made a comment about having a PD. My sister-in-law kept asking him to disclose the specific disorder. My parents are aware that my boyfriend have a complex PD, but don't know the exact diagnosis. My family and my boyfriend met quite a few times, but there has never been any incident. My sister-in-law, unfortunately, had a miscarriage during her teen pregnancy before she and my brother got together. I think that's where the sensitivity is from. Here's the thing. No. She is not sensitive to your boyfriend because of her miscarriage. That is ridiculous. She probably already knows this, but maybe not. But just so you know, most miscarriages have nothing to do with the mother's mental health, but with an error in the genetic melding in the embryo, basically an unsurvivable defect in the DNA. So don't let her guilt you into thinking that her stress level over what's happening with you will somehow affect her pregnancy. That is a very unlikely possibility. Not the a-hole. Back up to the post, we have an edit. My brother had a talk with my sister-in-law, and she's called me to apologize for her behavior. I came clean about the fake breakup. She says it's wrong of her to assume the worst in my boyfriend. My brother asked her what she would do if her child was unfortunate to have the same diagnosis, and that changed her perspective. Those were her words, but she has concerns still and thinks it's best for my boyfriend to keep his distance until further notice. And she will be speaking to her doctor about her anxiety and stress. She also offered to apologize to my boyfriend, but my boyfriend says he doesn't care about some petty words, and he told her to manage her own health, both mental and physical. Thanks everyone for your concern and advice, and to all those that made unnecessarily rude comments about my boyfriend and our relationship, learn some empathy. And now onto the update. In my original post, I edited an update about how I had a talk with my sister-in-law and she apologized for her actions, and she also decided to see a therapist. As most of the comments suggested, I talked to my brother and parents about sister-in-law's behavior. It has been a week and we are all doing mostly good. My sister-in-law had her first therapy session. She finds it nerve-wracking, but she believes it'll be effective. She tells me that she would randomly think about my boyfriend's diagnosis and get all anxious. And whenever she caught herself getting anxious over this, she played tavern music and drew a medieval town. I don't know the exact term, which seems to work really well to soothe her. She also gets a better sleep and the baby is healthy. I have read all the comments in my original post, though I disagree with some of the comments about my sister-in-law. I agree that I was at fault for not setting boundaries and lying to her about my relationship. I am truly grateful for all the advice, and it was such a great insight and motivation to read about people who are in a similar situation as me and my boyfriend. I apologize to my boyfriend for disrespecting our relationship. We both agree that we should no longer disclose his diagnosis to anyone. Unfortunately, we have to change our couples therapist, and it's hard finding a new one. Apart from that, things are going well, and last Friday I formally met his family for the first time, which went beyond my expectation. Again, I would like to say thank you all for your support and advice. In the comments, wait, are you changing your couples therapist so you can hide his diagnosis? Please do not do that. It's incredibly important for the medical professional providing services to you to know about any mental health diagnoses in order to properly help you. And OP says, our therapist has sadly passed away just a few days ago. May their soul be in peace. Edit, to answer some questions. 1. My boyfriend's family started to see therapists since he was 4. It was their therapist who suspected my boyfriend might be ND, specifically having ADHD or autism, by the time he was 7 or 8. He started seeing a child psychologist when he was 11 and got diagnosed with ASPD at 18. 2. He killed toads and rats by smashing their heads with rocks and then cut up their bodies. This started when he was 10 and lasted about a year. He said it was because of curiosity. He wasn't getting high off killing them, but he also didn't feel guilty about it. He just didn't care. He once tried cutting himself around this time, but he couldn't stand the pain and stopped. From the age of 13 to 16, he got into quite a bit of trouble. Lying to the authorities, driving without a license, not obeying traffic rules, locking up his bully in his school lab room, stealing from the lab room, substance abuse. I got this information from his parents, his diagnosis papers, and directly from him. 3. I'm in a relationship with him because I like him and I think we're compatible. I could write an essay about why I want someone with ASPD as a boyfriend, but who would want to read that? I'll just highlight some points. Unlike most men, I know my boyfriend is not homophobic. He's agnostic like me, totally not the norm where we live. Coming out as an atheist is social suicide. They hate it more than homosexuality. He is child-free, he is completely okay with me having a life outside of our relationship. Obviously, I like him because of other reasons too, like his physical features, his independence, his healthy home life, he works hard, and gives me both the physical and emotional care that I wanted. One thing that I really like about him is when he gives me a heads up for when he would be unavailable. If he's occupied by something and won't have time to take my call or reply to a text, he'd text me and say, "I have to do this," or that I won't be available for this amount of hours. I know it's silly, but I really appreciate it. In conclusion, I'm willing to take the risk and make an effort to stay in a relationship with him because I believe we are helping each other grow as a person and fill each other's void. In the comments, I appreciate that most of these comments are serious. However, the story took a turn for me when I learned sister-in-law listens to tavern music and draws medieval scenes to calm herself. Not to be rude, but this strikes me as hilarious. For an interesting book with lots of people with ASPD, try The Psychopath Test by John Ronson. People with her boyfriend's diagnosis exist on a huge spectrum. The number who commit crimes are likely to be incredibly low compared with the number that exist. Her sister-in-law needs to let her live her life. She does not need to stop further revealing his diagnosis, since people equate him with a killer before they equate him with a cutthroat businessman. Would I date him? Nope. But my background and trauma isn't hers. She's young, she's 20, it's uncomplicated, and with his emotional range, he is unlikely to ever make it complicated for her. Honestly, my favorite example is the doctor who was studying brain scans of people with ASPD, decided to use his own as a comparison, and realized it matched with his patients with ASPD. When he spoke to his friends and family about it, they said they already figured out that he had it based on his behavior at times, but it didn't have much of an impact on his relationships. He was married and had kids at that point. The spectrum is truly vast. Break up with your boyfriend. No. Wah, break up with your boyfriend. Okay, I did. Move in with me. No. Wah. I'm sensing a pattern here. I hope sister-in-law continues therapy. Though I absolutely get that OP chose to lie about breaking up, considering her sister-in-law had a miscarriage before, you don't want to get blamed for that kind of thing, and you'd better believe that sister-in-law and her whole family and friends would have hounded her like a pack of rabid dogs if sister-in-law had miscarried again. Our next post is titled, "I told my son/nephew the truth, and my wife is pissed." Confusing title? Welcome to the crap show. My wife got pregnant when we started dating at 16. We decided to give the kid up for adoption once she had him. It was a tough decision, but we weren't ready to be parents at 16. My older sister had just gotten married and found out that she had infertility, so she proposed the idea of adopting our son. That way we could still be involved in his life and watch him grow up. My wife had him by C-section, and my sister has raised him since. We agreed that none of us would tell him until we all agreed he was old enough to understand it. Sure, it was tough to watch him go through life knowing that's our kid until we finally had kids when we were ready. We are now 36 and he is getting ready to turn 20. I've got a great relationship with him as his uncle. He comes to me with his problems that he can't bring up with his parents. He comes to our house regularly to spend time with our kids, and even said that he considers me his dad since his parents got divorced. Edit to add, we had conversations all the time about telling him as soon as he turned 13, then it got pushed to 15, then to 18, and still no one had wanted to tell him. We had a deal. If he found a car that he wanted to restore, I would pay for anything he needed if he did the work. My dad did the same thing when I was a teenager, and it was a great life lesson, and I still have that car to this day. He normally just calls me by my name or a nickname made up by my wife, his mum, or the kids. Today, he came to the shop to do some work while I was out there working on something else. Then I hear, "Hey Dad, my name, can you hand me a rag?" And that's when I knew this kid needed to know. He's almost a grown adult, he can handle it. I told him that I needed to tell him something. So we sat down at the table in there, and I just flat out told him, "Wife and I are your birth parents." He looked confused because his mum had said that she gave birth to him, so he would never think anything was up. He had lots of questions, and I answered them as honestly as I could. He left after, and he asked his mum about it, who then called my wife to tell her that I had told him everything. I knew that I should start digging my own grave in the backyard when she put her phone down with no words and just stared at me. She was livid that I didn't ask anyone before I told him. It was selfish, but it had to be done. I just couldn't hold it in anymore. Edit, Wow, I had no idea this post would get this much support and positive comments. I screwed up in many ways and felt terrible and like an a-hole for telling him. My sister wants to have dinner tonight with my wife and I to tell the full story and to discuss what happens in the future. I'll make an update post after. In the comments, I don't get why people play hide the ball with adopted kids. My parents have told me ever since I can remember, and my 3-year-old brain processed it fine. He's plenty old enough to know, and at minimum for health records, he should know. One of the reasons is insecurities with the adoptive parents, thinking they will love bio parents more. Or maybe that they want to protect the kid from feeling rejected. You know, you can word things so that it lessens the feeling of rejection. My parents always told my sister that her mum couldn't afford all the nice things she wanted to give her, so she wanted to give her a family that would love her as much as she did. My dad also said that when they got to the hospital, they were taken to a room with the babies up for adoption. Third world type situation. My dad went in first and chose my sister because she smiled at him, and then my mum went and chose her too. It is absolute bollocks. And they were given my sister and told that if she doesn't fit with your family, bring her back and we can find another baby. But my sister loves that story, and to be honest, she's probably the most well-adjusted of the lot of us. It is so good that you told him. I found out from my drunk cousin when I was 28. My father wasn't my bio dad, and my whole family lied to me my entire life. Come to find out, my mum was married before being married to my father, and I was the product of her first marriage. Completely changed my relationship with my mum. Of course, she was very controlling and a liar. Lying to a grown-ass adult about who their parents are is something a controlling liar would do, to be honest. As a 20-year-old, I'd want to know. Honestly, knowing sooner would have been better, because it could have shattered trust. But you told him now, and there is no going back. They've just got to deal with it. It was the right time to tell him, with him calling you dad, but a quick text or call to your wife was in order, letting her know that you're going to tell him and giving her the chance to be there when you do. Rebuilding a car together sounds like a great family tradition. I'm glad you'll be able to bond as father and son. And OP replies, I wish I had told them. I had built up the confidence to tell him and didn't even think of anyone else, which was pretty selfish of me to only think of myself in this situation. I hope we can still have a good bond, but I'm not sure if I want him to think of me as his dad or still his uncle. He asked me that, and I told him we could discuss that with his mum and aunt. You let him call you whatever he wants to call you. It's his choice now how he proceeds. And now on to the update. To answer a lot of questions that were asked, after a little bit, my wife and sister thanked me for telling him. The day before that, my sister and her just had a conversation about telling him, and neither could bring themselves to. Yes, it was an a-hole move, and selfish to do it without warning, but who knows how long they would have waited to tell him. My wife and I never abandoned him at all. We've been in his life since he was born, and for every major life step, helped with financial decisions like college, sports, and buying his first car, and we helped in any way that we could. Dinner went relatively well. My wife made delicious parmesan chicken, in case anyone was wondering. A lot of emotions and conversations we weren't ready for. The main thing that came out of our conversation was that my sister will always be his mum since she raised him, we will support him with whatever decision he makes, and we will always be his family. He asked if he could call my wife and me his parents, and we happily agreed. He lightened the mood by saying, so now you're my dunkle and she's my maunt. But not in a weird way. So today, we gained the older son that we've always wanted, and our kids gained the older brother that they have needed. I couldn't be happier with the decision that I made last night. Thank you everyone that was crazy supportive from Reddit and TikTok. It was crazy to see my story in a video when I was scrolling through TikTok. In the comments, lesson learned. Kids need to know where they came from the beginning in age-appropriate ways. It's nice that the nephew took it in stride, but all of the drama and feelings could have been spared if all parties had just been open about it from the time that he was a baby. I agree, but I can't judge their decision too harshly when it was made, in part, by two 16-year-olds who admit they aren't ready to raise a kid. It wasn't on them though. His adoptive parents, who were mature adults, should have told the kid right from the very start. Quote, I told my son/nephew the truth. Biological son/adopted nephew is not what immediately came to my mind with that title. Maybe I've been watching too much Game of Thrones. When I was 14, I found out that my close family friend was actually my younger half-brother. His mum, my mum's best friend, is a lesbian and always wanted a child, but IVF for gay parents wasn't legal, so one turkey baster and a cup of donated sperm later, I got a half-brother. My mum found out she was pregnant around the same time with my younger sister. When we were little, I always used to tease them and say they would get married when they were older, and now I know why the adults would never laugh. It happened in Ireland a few years ago. Dad was a horn dog in his youth. 18/19 years later, 2 kids meet in college, hook up, move in together, and he proposes. Then she brings him to meet her mother. Due to various circumstances, he hadn't met her mother in the year they were together, and mother finds out who his dad is and freaks out. They did get married and both of them were going to get neutered, so no deformed children were born. They went on the telly at the time, but they were behind a screen. I have to break up with my newish serious girlfriend because of medical issues. About 8 months ago, I met a very lovely woman and we hit it off completely. She has her own life, kids, work, hobbies, but we make things work and we see each other whenever possible and are in touch daily. I love her, and she has also stated that she loves me. We've talked about long-term plans of being together once we are both done with our other obligations. Whilst all of these wonderful experiences have been going on, I have been dealing with what I thought were minor medical issues. I never let on to my girlfriend, so as not to worry her and add another dynamic to our relationship, that I have been having any issues, and they were so minor that I was able to get away with it. After many medical appointments and many tests, my doctors informed me late last week that the problems aren't so minor and the prognosis is not good. I absolutely do not want to burden this wonderful woman with what I'm going to be dealing with. Do I lie and make up a story, or do I tell her the truth? Can anyone see a way out of this without lying or telling her the truth? Regardless of how I approach this, I will not be staying with her. In the comments, she needs to know the truth. Tell her your prognosis and let her know why you don't want her involved in your care. If she wants to help you, you have decided you don't want her to witness it, and that is your right. But you can't not tell her, and if she finds out you have died, she will feel guilty forever thinking that she could have done something to help you. Don't put that burden on her. And OP says, thank you for answering the question. Good luck. I hope your prognosis isn't as bad as you think, but don't turn down help. There are angels around for you, even if you don't want it to be her. When my family member got a similar diagnosis with less than half the chance of survival, the first couple weeks, they pushed everyone away. However, it changed after they talked to someone, and it ended up being better for everyone in the end. I think you should reach out ASAP and talk to a therapist this week. Rather than push her away this week, leave it open because you might regret it 2 weeks down the line, and it will hurt her just the same if you do, as you have a right to, but if you change your mind as you accept this, you might change your stance and prevent that hurt to her. I know someone who was in your position. He did break up with his girlfriend, and they maintained a friendship until he passed away. She was glad that he told her the truth about his medical condition, and I think he was too. As a 56-year-old woman that just lost her mother a month ago and am now having health issues, I get it. Having said that, please be honest with her so that you don't leave her with a ton of questions and self-doubts. She doesn't deserve to think there is something wrong with her or something that she failed at. I wish you well, and please take care of yourself. Remember to make each moment count. And OP says, thank you. I have decided to tell her the unvarnished truth about everything. Good luck, OP. I really am hoping for the best. Life is hard, and sometimes we gotta do what we gotta do. Sending good vibes to you. Back up to the post, we have an edit. Folks, thanks for your input. I will be telling her the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'm sorry so many of you can't accept that I will be ending the relationship, but that wasn't a question that I asked about, and it is my absolute right to do so. And now, on to the update. It's going to be short and sweet. Well, maybe not so sweet. I worked out a plan to tell her everything at our next meeting, tonight. I had spoken with a counselor and worked out a plan. I wrote her a letter and was going to read it to her in person. The letter explained my health situation and my plans going forward. Long story short, she was able to sense that something was up during our conversations this week. Because I didn't want to just drop this ton of bricks on her unannounced, I gave her a heads up that we needed to talk when we met. Things went downhill from there. She assumed the worst because of her past, and we ended up breaking things off on the phone earlier. When I said we, I meant she. She has no idea about my health situation, and I now have no plans to share this information with her. I would also like to state for all the people saying I was not doing the right thing, my counselor helped me see this isn't about right or wrong, it's about doing what's best for me. Wishing you all peace and love. Edit to add, it's clear that Reddit and I are not and have not been in agreement about 1. My ending my relationship, and 2. What has transpired around my ending it. I would pull out the old, do not judge someone before you've walked a mile in their shoes, but I would never wish that onto anyone. I don't regret my actions, but I do regret posting the update. This will be my last update, last response, and last post to Reddit. May you all find peace in your lives, and don't be so quick to judge. Life is messy and is very complicated. In the comments, oof, she's gonna feel extra awful when she learns you're gone. You might consider leaving your letter for her with a note that her assumptions made it easier for you to do what you needed to do, so she should not feel bad. I don't know. Her reaction was defensive and immature, but she will be devastated and needs some closure. Not your responsibility, but since the main letter is already written, it would be a kind thing to do. Either way, I hope you're able to check off as much of your bucket list as possible and that your current plans work out as intended. All the best. And OP replies, there is a very good chance she won't know what happens to me unless she comes looking at some point down the road. Her finding out the truth may just reopen her wounds of us splitting up. And thank you. Jesus. Just send the letter. Either you let her connect the dots on her own, and she feels awful for abandoning you during your remaining time, or you tell her now, and she can still ask you questions while you're around to answer them. Either way, she will figure out that 1, you died, and 2, you got sick around the time you two broke up. Let her work through the wound of this reality in the best possible way, and she needs to know what's going on in order to do so. I can tell you that it's the worst feeling ever when you get some soul-breaking news about things like someone else's passing, and then you find out that your entire view about them was wrong because they lied to you, and then you have to pick up a jumbled mess of feelings about the entire thing just because you didn't get the chance to make peace with them before they went. It messes people up for years instead of getting a clean cut and all the truth, even though it hurts. Don't take this the wrong way, but you were dying here anyway, man. Why do you have to be cruel after your death? What's the worst that could happen by being honest with the woman that you cherished? Why do you have to gamble with her mental health like that by saying, oh, she'll probably not check up on the person that she cherished for 8 months, even though we all know that she'll find out? Sure, it makes your remaining time easier, but then you have to be clear about that as your reason to stay silent and not give some, she won't find out, it would hurt her too much. She just thinks that I think she's a horrible person because of something from her past, which is the more gracious lie instead of the truth justification. You are not reopening the wound of you two splitting up if you tell her now. She's already wounded. Give her all the facts so that she can work through things while you're still around to clear things up. Why the hell are people getting mad at OP for wanting to end the relationship? That's his choice. He's not asking if he should, he's asking how to approach it. I understand his logic in wanting to break it off. Reddit needs to pick a side of leave them or stay in the relationship. For real, I have loads of health issues, and it's a massive burden on my husband. Wanting to spare someone that, and not wanting to share the process of dying with someone you've known less than a year, is a totally valid choice. Reddit can be so effing judgmental. This person is dealing with a really difficult and painful time, and is doing what's best for him in that terrible situation. Of course, none of this situation is ideal. Having to deal with a really bad diagnosis like this? Well, nothing about that can be ideal, can it? It was hard to stand reading all the comments being so freaking harsh to a dying man because he wouldn't chase his mean girlfriend down who wouldn't even listen to him. "Your life and death isn't about you," was an actual comment. I'm like, huh? Is everyone in that thread trolling? Maybe very many of them relate hard to the apparently very reactive girlfriend. Our next post is titled, "Am I the a-hole for asking my parents to cover half of the cost of my new Nintendo Switch? I'm 19, and I got a Switch for my 17th birthday. My parents covered half of the price and I paid the rest. My sister is 14, and she constantly asks if she can play on my Switch. I allow her as long as she's careful and has clean hands. She's been pretty good all these years, until last week. She sent me a text asking if she can play on my Switch when she came home from school and I was still at work. I said sure. When I came back, the whole Switch was greasy, especially the Joy-Cons. She admitted to eating chips while playing, and I told her to never ever do that again. 2 days later, the same thing happened. She texted me asking if she can play. I said yes, but only if she's not eating anything and has clean hands. She promised to be careful and said that she just wants to show something to her friend really quick. When I came back from work, my Switch was on the dining table, one Joy-Con missing, screen cracked, back panel in pieces. My sister just locked herself in her room. So from what I was told, my sister was showing something to her friend and accidentally dropped it. I really doubt this is what happened due to the damage, but she swears up and down that this is what happened. I wasn't super mad at her, I was more so just sad and upset. We both explained the situation to our parents, and I asked them to pay for half my Switch, or if I'm buying OLED, to just contribute half of the price of a normal Switch. They said absolutely not. We argued for a while, and I asked them if they would at least give me $100, but they would not budge whatsoever. My mum said that I'm entitled for expecting them to pay for my toys, and now I'm kind of feeling bad. In the comments, "Not the a-hole. Your sister should be the one paying a portion to replace it, but her being a child likely has no income, so it's on your parents. If she and OP get allowance, or are gifted money sometimes, then the sister should save up and pay some back. I would say she should pay entirely, but that may take a really long time as a minor. I feel so bad for OP. I do too. I wonder if OP broke his parents' TV if they would expect him to pay back to replace their toys. Not the a-hole. You also seem to be a nice brother. Your sister should be held responsible as well. She's 14, not 8. She can understand the concept. Your parents are also belittling and ignorant. I know people 40 plus who still very much enjoy a Switch. I'm 65 and I love my OLED for Animal Crossing. Oop, time to check turnip prices. Not the a-hole. Your parents are refusing to replace an item their child broke, period. If she had accidentally broken someone outside of the home Switch, they would be paying for 100% of it. You didn't even ask for full reimbursement, only half. It's an a-hole move to gaslight you by saying they won't pay for your toys. And now, on to the update. First of all, thanks to everyone who commented on my first post. I was overwhelmed with what happened after, so I couldn't reply to a lot of people. And now to the update. Long story short, my sister didn't break the Switch. It was her friend who threw it and made my sister say that it was her. A few days after it happened, my sister came to my room and said that her friend bullies her at school, made her invite her to our house and play on the Switch. My sister is very shy and impressionable, and that girl used and manipulated her. Obviously, I don't have any proof, but it does make sense. My sister is usually very careful with the things that she borrows from me, and she did get bullied last year by other girls. I won't get into too much detail any further, but we did contact her parents and we got an apology, but they refuse to pay though. My sister got switched to homeschooling for now and is doing really well. In the comments, I'm glad his sister is doing well, but the bully's parents really need to pay up. You are responsible for your kid. They break it, you buy it. No different from any other form of property damage. Turns out, a lot of crappy kids' parents are also crappy. And if they aren't, there is usually another influential person in their life making them crappy. No one is born a bully. Both sets of parents know they are legally responsible to pay for the crap their kid breaks. And OP is an adult, so their parents' reasoning was horse crap. It could be Funko Pops, it could be a car. If you owe money, you owe money. I was thinking, what would happen if the daughter broke a non-family member's stuff? But maybe they would be like the bully's parents and all, sorry not sorry, my wallet's closed. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my girlfriend wear her unique dress to a wedding? Throwaway account because she uses Reddit. My 25 male girlfriend, female 30, Nat, has a very particular sense of style. Picture Harley Finkel from Wizards of Waverly Place. You'll get the idea. Don't get me wrong, I never had a problem with that. In fact, I love the way she dresses because she loves to do so, and I'm happy if she's happy. The thing is, sometimes she likes to incorporate memes into her clothes. No problem, it's cute. But now she wants to wear a dress inspired on the meme Gay Rat Wedding to my friend's wedding. He and his fiancée are gay. I told her, maybe that's not really appropriate? The dress in question would be full of little stuffed rats, pride flags, and a big I support gay rats on the front. My friend is not a big fan of the way that my girlfriend dresses, and I think this dress may cause a certain uproar in the wedding. Now, Nat is upset with me and claiming that I'm throwing water in her flame of creativity. The wedding is next month, so she has plenty of time to think about another thing to wear. Should I just let her go with the dress? Am I the butthole in this situation? In the comments, not the a-hole. That's very inappropriate for a wedding, not to mention kind of insulting. Add to it that it completely makes her the center of attention when it should be about the couple. People need to understand they're basically NPCs at a wedding unless they're immediately close with the bride and groom, and even then, they're just background characters, not the a-hole. I used to be a groomsman like you, but then I took an arrow to the knee. Let me guess, someone stole your wedding cake. Exactly. It's their wedding day. The newlyweds should be the center of attention, and they explicitly said they don't like this. Why would you do something the grooms disapprove of at their wedding? Either you want attention or you want to piss off the grooms. The I support gay rats can be pretty damn insulting. People can interpret it in two ways. Either she only supports gay rats, not humans. She's discreetly signaling to the grooms that she disapproved of them without being called out as homophobic, or she does support them, but by wearing an I support gay rats shirt to their wedding, she's shown that she sees them as rats, which is degrading to not just them, but gay people in general, since it buys into the highly dangerous idea that gay folks are less than human. Neither option is something that I would want at a wedding. I really doubt OP's girlfriend meant it, but if she's joking, the joke fell flat. If the grooms themselves aren't happy, why would the guests be? To be fair, it's not that you aren't letting her. You can't stop her, and you're not pretending you can. Nobody can paint you as being controlling in this. All you're doing is telling her how unbelievably crass it would be to wear that dress, how disrespectful it would seem, how poorly it would be received, and overall how much of a weapons-grade flaming butthole she would be to wear it to these guys' wedding. Not the a-hole. Holy crap, does she not see how incredibly dehumanizing and objectifying what she wants to do is? It's a gay wedding, so that makes a meme about rats a good fit? Throw some rainbow crap at it. The gays love rainbows, seems to broadly summarize her take. If she wasn't individually invited and just going as his plus one, he could just refuse to bring her with him though. But yeah, he needs to impart on her how horrifyingly rude that will seem to them. They won't like the joke, and she may single-handedly ruin their wedding with her creative fire. And now, onto the updates. Well guys, as many of you pointed out in the comments, me getting a throwaway account didn't help. She found the post. Guess I was too specific after all. I will update soon. Hello everyone. I would like to thank all of you for your judgment, advice, and opinions on my post. It was greatly appreciated. So the conversation did not go well. She was livid with me for exposing her in this way, and although I showed her the comments, most important, the ones from the LGBTQIA community, she refused to admit that her dress was a poor choice, but in fact, her way to appreciate the gays. That did not sit well with me. Love can move mountains, but cannot maintain a relationship with a homophobe. So, now I am going to the wedding a single, rat-free dress man. I did reach out to my friend and send him this post. He thought the situation to be hilarious, but if she did show up in the dress, he would definitely kick us to the curb. I guess this is all. And P.S. I am deeply sorry for misspelling Harpy's name. Won't happen again, lol. Am I the a-hole for giving the vacation of my ex-fiancé's dreams to her sister and husband? I met my ex's sister in high school when she started dating my best friend. During our senior year, she got pregnant and they married soon after. After high school, I joined the military. I served 6 years before getting medically discharged. Ex and I started dating, and I got a job that would have me leave a couple times a month, up to 10 days at a time. While doing some last-minute wedding planning, a text from her sister popped up asking, "Have you told OP about what you did with her ex-boyfriend? If you don't do it tonight, I will tomorrow." I asked her what was that, and she tried to play it off. I kept pressing her, and she said that during their bachelorette party, she ran into him, but nothing happened. It was an obvious lie. I went through her phone when she fell asleep. There was text and pictures with him all the way back from when we started dating. They would hook up every time I went on work trips, so I sent the proof to my phone. I woke her up and kicked her out and ended the relationship. She did the cheater's script. I told her that Stephanie looked a lot like her ex-boyfriend and showed her one of the screenshots of them together in my bed. She started to cry and I gently got her out the door. I cancelled all wedding plans and needed some help calling the guests to inform them the wedding was off. My friend's wife said that during the bachelorette party, she caught them sneaking away and having some intimate time. When she confronted them, she gave my ex the option of coming clean to me herself, or she would do it. She didn't know that it was an ongoing thing. Now on to the honeymoon vacation. I had planned it so that it would be perfect for my ex. It was a 10-day trip to another country that she has always said was a once-in-a-lifetime bucket list place. There was nice hotels, amazing experiences, and overall was her dream vacation. I was already out about 10 grand for the wedding and more if I cancelled the honeymoon trip. I made the decision to offer it up to them since I knew that they never had a honeymoon or really any real vacations since they got married young and had kids. Also, they just saved me money and time. They accepted. They were able to get the time off work and had made arrangements for the kids for the trip. My ex found out about it, and she flipped out and was calling me and texting me about how much of an a-hole I am for doing that to her, how I knew that it was her dream vacation, how I ruined her life. I got messages from her friends and some of her family that she lied to and blamed me for the breakup. Her ex even texted me saying that I'm not a real man and then threatened me. She must have went there last night as he shouldn't have my number. I have not responded to them at all. But am I the a-hole for giving my cheating ex-fiancé's dream honeymoon to her sister and my best friend? In the comments, take the threat to the police. You owe your cheating ex literally nothing. Not the a-hole. Message the ex telling her that OP will send the full collection of screenshots, minus the photos obviously, to anyone that harasses him over it. That'll shut her up real quick. She and her ex actually have the nerve to harass OP over this? Unreal. Not the a-hole. You caught her and called her out on it. That vacation was supposed to be for the both of you, and since you're not an item anymore, she can just plan it anew with her current beau. Her sister and your best friend sound a hell of a lot more loyal to you than she ever was. What is your ex even expecting? That you would gift the trip to her and her boyfriend? Chances are she's more mad that it's going to her sister. Now there's no way for her to spin the narrative. It just further illustrates that she's a cheater and OP is generous. Lol, this is the ultimate petty revenge. She'll be fuming at her sister's Instagram for years. I think you had to have known that gifting it to her sister would cause some tension. Her sister could have rejected it if she didn't want her sister to be hurt, but it sounds like they already don't have too close of a bond. That said, my judgment would probably be slightly different if she wasn't married to your childhood friend. You paid for it, you couldn't use it, you get to decide what to do with it, and gifting it to a long-term friend is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. It's honestly just unfortunate that your friend, in this case, happens to be married to your ex's sister. And now, onto the update. The funny thing about me is, I can be a war zone and be calm, but in the situation of that night, I was a mess. I was not thinking. When you get a bunch of messages telling me off from people I thought cared about me, it threw me off. On the bright side, I get regular checkups because of my job, blood work included, but I went and got checked specifically for anything sexual and all was negative. I followed some of the requests and got a restraining order on the affair partner for the threat. Pays to have good connections with local law enforcement. Y'all were right, I didn't really have to do anything for the truth to come out. She ended up going to her sister's place the night after she found out about the honeymoon, banging on the door, demanding all the trip information. When she got denied, she went crazy, screaming and yelling, and eventually was detained when the neighbors called the cops. I found out that during her fit, she confessed that she was just using me, and she never loved me, and she admitted sleeping around behind my back. Did I mention that it was on the camera? Doorbell camera for the win. They posted it. I ended up getting messages from the family apologizing, but none from her friends. So I sent them screenshots of the messages and a PG-safe photo. Messages also included her talking crap about most of them. After that, the affair partner showed up to my house, trying to break in and talk to me. He was drunk. I lightly self-defended him and carefully detained him. Police came and he was arrested. I also have cameras with audio. Assault, breaking and entering, and for defying an RO. So she has lost most of her family, friends, spent the night in jail, and her affair partner is going to jail also. I was able to set up on a contract for a month, which comes with bonuses and getting out of the country. Hopefully my mind will be right when I get back. Also, my friend and his wife will leave for the honeymoon today. I was about to get some of the more personal details of the trip changed into their name. I also paid for the hotel to put a cheap camera and a note saying, "Remember to make lasting memories and to document the journey." In the comments, "Sounds like you're an amazing person who got a good homie on your side, and I'm super happy for you. Glad you lost the dead weight, and I hope you get your head back in the right space." Our next post is titled, "I think I'm financially abusing my little brother." I, 26 female, live with my husband, 28 male, little brother, 18 male, and my daughter, 1 female. I'm also 30 weeks pregnant. My parents got divorced and neither stayed in his school district. It's his final year of high school, and he has grants and plans to attend a local community college after he graduates. We all work. I work part-time and husband and brother both work full-time. My brother pitches in $600 a month for all bills, and we cover the rest. Now, this is where I was told that I'm being financially abusive by my parents and his friends. He hasn't spoken up against our current arrangements himself. He pitches in that $600 a month along with grocery money, and he also pitches in when we are short for anything. He saves money from every check for anything the grant doesn't cover during college, but I've heard from his friends that he will actually pull money from his savings to help us out. He never told us, and he never asked us to pay it back. My husband and I are both saving for our second child and don't dip into it for any reason. My brother gets paid 1 week and my husband and I are paid the next, both bi-weekly pay. He uses my car since he doesn't have his own, so I also make him pay for gas, meaning he is obligated to throw in on groceries, gas, and bills. I'm not sure how much he spends on gas, but he throws in about $300 on food, $600 on bills, and at least $200 on gas a month, meaning he's paying $1,100 to stay here, and we have him spot us on stuff for the baby if I run out during the week that hubby and I aren't getting paid. Writing this out, I can see why they believe we are abusing him financially as he's trying to save for college, and we already require him to pay us $1,100 in living expenses a month. It's rare, but we will spot him for any amount he asks for when we are paid. I feel like this is why he hasn't complained, along with the fact that he is hoping the grants will pay for all college expenses. I may add a bit of our baby fund to his college fund to help him. We have around $6,000 saved, so I might add a month's expenses to his savings, or when he starts his semester of college, tell him we will cover his living expenses for that month. This is more to write down the living arrangements we currently have, and put down that I'm thinking about doing things to fix this situation if I truly am abusing him financially. I'm open to suggestions and opinions. In the comments, $200 a month on gas alone? I spend maybe $120 a month by myself, and my commute is 30 total miles per day to and from work. And charging him $300 a month in food? He could do his own grocery shopping for much less than that. This is just not adding up. Right? I spend $100 to $220 a month on gasoline. I try to keep my miles down though. $150 a month on groceries. This grown woman is pregnant, married, and is full living off her 18-year-old kid brother who is still in high school. I'm trying really hard not to be judgmental, but it's difficult. OP just sounds manipulative and greedy. OP, by no means should your kid brother be paying for your baby. If you can't afford the one you have now, what makes you think that you can afford the second when your brother moves out for school? This is 100% unfair. The only way that $600 in bills would ever be fair is if all of your bills are more than or equal to $2,400. He should not be expected to pay more than 1/4 of your bills and 1/5 after the second baby is born. Do the babies themselves use utilities or whatever? No, but they require so much that do. Total and complete headcount is what the fraction of bills should be. $300 in groceries? Does he eat that much food? It sounds to me like your family is living beyond its means, or you and your husband need to budget better. What are you going to do after your brother moves out and you no longer have an extra $1,500 per month coming in? To some people, that's a whole bi-weekly paycheck. You owe your brother a lot of money and a huge apology. From my point of view, yes you are. You seem to be nickel and diming him so that you can have a nice comfortable cushion for your second child. Tell me, when you were in high school, could you afford $1,100 a month? I highly doubt it. Yeah, this is so screwed. He's in high school, not already in college. He should be saving up for his education, and family should be looking out, not taking advantage of him. And he works full-time. Like, how does he have the time? You really should read what you just wrote. You basically answered your own problem. The fact that he also has to help out with baby stuff for your child that you had isn't okay. When you bring a child into this world, you are financially responsible. If your siblings decide to help, then that's fine. Edit, OP and I had some back and forth comments, and I might have came off harsh, but she took the advice along with everyone else's. She seemed genuine about not meaning to do what she did to her brother. Sometimes an outsider's opinion is what helps you realize what you were doing wrong. And now, onto the update. So, a lot has happened. The biggest thing we did was talk and let him know where we are standing with financial responsibility and my daughter. The biggest thing is he was just concerned that if his financial responsibility changed, so would the dynamics of the house. We changed it around and decided that he would pay $500 a month and gas, as well as his phone bill. If he doesn't eat what I make, he needs to provide his own foods, snacks he needs to provide for himself, and any drinks he wants, he will provide for himself. When I say snacks and drinks, I mean junk foods and soda. My husband and I don't really go for junk food and soda, but we constantly have juice, tea, and Kool-Aid around for him to drink if he doesn't want water, so if he wants soda and junk foods, he needs to start shopping for himself. He wasn't very happy to have to shop for himself, but it's a part of life. I'll still prepare meals and he can eat the foods we buy so he doesn't need those items. He didn't watch our daughter before and he still won't, but I see that assumption made. So to be clear, he doesn't watch the baby. I have a babysitter for when I work. It's not very often, so it's not very expensive. He, however, did offer to watch her so that we can cut the money we spend on the babysitter out of the budget, but I denied that. He asked if he could get a kitten. His friends giving them away, and I sorta caved, and I let him get the cat. He's responsible for her litter and food, but it seems that I end up cleaning her box and feeding her. Him and my husband just play with her. She waits at the door for him to come home and will meow at him in the mornings, which I find adorable. My husband wasn't too involved. He just said that it's my house and my brother, so whatever decision I make, he will back up. Not much help, but he isn't fighting me on it. I feel like I caved and let him have the cat as an apology. Not the best update, and I know details are kinda limited, but not a lot happened. He got a cat, he only pays $500 plus gas and phone bill. Pretty small and doesn't need a lot of details. In the comments, I'm happy for him you understand why it was wrong that he pay all the things that you made him pay for, because that was extremely abusive. But you have to give him back the excessive amount that he gave to your family. In my country, we don't charge rent to any family who lives in our house. I really don't understand that part, where your brother pays to live with you. Like, he is literally saving, but it's your culture and I have to respect that. I hope he didn't resent you for being abusive. And OP says, he doesn't. He was just concerned about household dynamics changing, which some did. We aren't doing movies or dinners on the weekends anymore, so everyone can save. So you're basically saying he was funding your weekly outings? And what do you mean so everyone can save? You mean so you can learn to be financially responsible so your kids don't have to suffer the consequences? I'm wondering if OP and her husband can really survive without the brother's income. I don't understand why her parents aren't providing support to their daughter for their son. Just because they moved out of state doesn't absolve them of financial responsibility. OP's brother might be 18, but he's still in high school. Their parents should be covering the increased expenses for hydro and food, at least, plus his clothing and educational needs. Maybe not through college, but at a minimum while he's still in high school. That's the part that sticks out to me. I was coming in here to say this. Where are the parents in all of this? I mean, they're still present according to OP, they just don't live in the school district, so shouldn't they pay for his living arrangements since he is no longer living with them? I mean, it's not because they're now divorced that they no longer have a responsibility towards their son still in high school. According to the OP's comments, they cut off financial support for him when he turned 18. So if anyone's financially abusing OP's brother, it's the parents who didn't even let him finish high school before cutting him off, not OP. Honestly, the original scenario didn't even sound that crazy. A lot of that $1,100 per month was and could be labeled car expenses or just food, for instance. It sounds crazy to me. $1,100 a month is a lot of money to expect out of an 18-year-old. I couldn't put that money together after college, let alone in high school. I'm a little confused as to why they have savings, but still make him spot them for stuff. Like, I get not wanting to dip into your savings, but that's what it's there for. It's also concerning how apparently they are regularly not making ends meet already and are having a second child and will soon be losing $500+ a month in income. Also, holy crap, he throws in $300 a month on food? Unless that's the majority of their food budget, they need to reflect on their grocery shopping habits. Like, I get that it's hard to make a decent income for a lot of people, but if you're struggling already, why have a second child? Am I the a-hole for not having my niece be the flower girl at my wedding? I am bi, hence the name, I am a woman. The person I am engaged to is also a woman. This is relevant because my sister Amanda hates both those things. She and her husband John are both homophobic, so during the process of planning our wedding party for our wedding next May, the idea of having my niece be the flower girl was never even brought up. Instead, we pretty quickly chose my fiancé's little cousin for that role. My sister found out that her daughter isn't going to be the flower girl and is absolutely livid about it. She insisted that my fiancée Jane had forced me to choose her cousin over my niece, that my niece was the obvious choice and I should change it. You may say, why not just have 2 flower girls? Well, I suggested that as a compromise to Amanda as well, but she hates that idea too. The main issue I have with making my niece the flower girl is that I can't be sure she will even be there. To be honest, I didn't even know until recently if they would even come to the wedding at all. I'm still not sure, honestly. Their tolerance levels fluctuate on who they've been around, and even if they did, I would have assumed they wouldn't want their daughter as a part of it. Who knows if everything will be fine leading up to the wedding, and then the day of, Amanda and John decide to be homophobic. I know I sure don't. Somehow, my sister has gotten my parents on her side, and my mum says I'm being bitter because I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding. I'm pretty sure that's not it, though I was hurt at the time to not be invited. Part of me still is. But I don't think I would try to punish my niece over it, which seems to be what my mum is trying to imply. In the comments, not the a-hole. You were more than gracious by offering to have 2 flower girls. The fact they demanded their daughter be the only flower girl suggests it's just a power play against your fiancé, pulling one over on her by getting her pick for the flower girl ousted, not a sincere desire for their daughter to be included in your joy. The fact that they don't actually support your marriage, aren't rooting for your success as a couple, and didn't even invite you to their own wedding just affirms that you have no obligation to even invite them to your wedding, let alone change your ceremony to suit them. This is what I was thinking. They don't want niece to be the flower girl, they just don't want fiancé's cousin to be. I'm actually wondering if they want her to be the only flower girl, so if they pull out at the last second, they can throw a wrench in the wedding. It's easier to recover if you have 2. Not the a-hole. You offered a compromise by agreeing to have both your niece and your fiancé's cousin as flower girls. It's not as if you're banning your sister and niece from your wedding. Considering how homophobic your sister and brother-in-law are, your parents should be happy that they are even invited to your wedding. Tell your sister to kick rocks if she still tries to push you. From the way you describe your sister, you probably are better off if she doesn't come to your wedding. Also, why is your mom not okay with you having 2 flower girls? If your mom was supportive of your sister's decision to not invite you to her wedding, then she should also be supportive of the decisions you make regarding your wedding. And OP replies, "Oh, no. Sorry, my mum thought the 2 flower girl option was fine, but she adores my niece. Which is fair. I do too. So I know that her bias has at least some part to do with her siding with my sister. And to be fair, my mum also was upset about me not getting invited to my sister's wedding. Your mum's kind of the butthole here too. Your sister is a vile homophobe, and it sounds like your mum is enabling her by trying to force you to forgive her. What does she have to say about your sister's hateful beliefs? Your mum needs to accept that there are consequences for sister's actions, and that sometimes those consequences will affect her child, because guess what? Being the daughter of a homophobe is going to create a lot of social problems for niece in the future. In any event, I'd be very suspicious of a homophobe trying to use their children to guilt force their way into my wedding. Not the a-hole. But also, why is your homophobic sister even invited to your wedding? You don't need that kind of toxic bullcrap around you for a day of celebration of your love. Gross. I hope she stops being so awful someday. And OP replies, I don't know. I didn't come out until I was 20, and she was my best friend up to that point. Like I said, their tolerance fluctuates. Some days are better. It's been almost 10 years, and I just got used to it, I guess. It helps that no one else in my family is the same way, but I also hope she stops being that way someday. She won't. Not the a-hole. She disrespects you and demands respect from you. That's not how it works. Set boundaries and reinforce consequences when she crosses those boundaries. And now, on to the update. Hello everyone. A few years ago, I posted this here on Am I the A-hole about my sister making a fuss about my niece not being the flower girl at my wedding. No one has asked for it, but I wanted to share this update anyway because you guys really helped out a lot. So I took a few people's advice about having both my niece and my then fiance's, now wife's, cousin being the flower girl without letting my sister know there would be two. The day of the wedding, and only my sister and niece showed up. Brother-in-law was nowhere to be seen. My sister was a little surprised about the two flower girls, but then surprised me even more by talking about how having two was such a cute idea. My sister was super sweet all through the reception, and I felt like I had my old sister back, which was so nice. We had a chance to talk in a way that we hadn't in years, and spent a little time going over the whole flower girl thing, and my sister was embarrassed and apologized. Without getting too much into things, my sister left my brother-in-law a few months after our wedding, and she confided in me that part of her decision came from seeing how differently my wife interacted with me and our family members when compared to her husband. Basically, ex-brother-in-law was not a good person to my sister. An understatement. And she is so much happier now. She's like she was at the reception, like my old sister who was full of life and caring and sweet and an absolute awesome mum. But the biggest reason why I wanted to share this update was because my sister and I have had a lot of long talks since the wedding and the whole flower girl ordeal. All of it stemmed from my ex-brother-in-law and his a-holishness. He did plan on causing a scene by not allowing my sister or my niece to come to the wedding. Apparently, it was like a 3-hour fight before my sister was able to leave for the ceremony. The biggest surprise came when we had a long talk after her divorce started. Me, my sister, and my wife. And my sister kept asking a lot of questions. Most of them centered around us being women who were bi or attracted to women. The next night, my sister came out as bi to the both of us. 3 weeks after that, without knowing our sister came out, our younger brother came out to the family as pan. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everyone for their advice and their kind words. I have my best friend and sister back. I am so very happily married to the most awesome woman in the world, and I get to go with my best friend, my awesome wife, and our super cool pan brother to Pride this year. Things are getting better, and it's okay to give people you love a chance. In the comments, I hope your sister invites you to the next wedding. I wonder if her ex was poisoning her with internalized homophobia, or she thought that it was better to go along with the narrative if he was that much of a problem for her. OP says, that's still an ouch area for us, but 100% because of the influence of the ex for the no invite. I'll probably be maid of honor at the next one. On a serious note, from our discussions afterwards, there was a lot of internalized homophobia that developed when she was first questioning. It got worse over time. I think my own coming out actually triggered it to get worse, and then she met her now ex, and he really did make it exponentially worse because he would feed into those internalized feelings and make her feel worse and worse. And part of her own actions and words were, I'm sure, to play into the narrative that her ex established. It kept the peace at home behind closed doors, and he got into her head so bad she probably started believing it herself at some point. Oof. I don't blame you two for it being an ouch area, but at least she was able to get out of that and her relationship. I wish you two the best of luck. Somewhere there is a very angry little man ranting to anyone who will listen about his evil sister-in-law that stole his wife and turned the whole frickin' family gay. Alex Jones could only imagine. Oh goodness, I can imagine him so vividly. Spittle flying, big old boiled ham face scrunched up with the fury at the thought of the gay agenda at work, turning the whole frickin' world gay. Our next post is titled, After almost 10 years, I found out my daughter is not mine, biologically. First off, I haven't used this throwaway account in 6 years. I'm surprised it's still active. Anyway, I got together with my wife about 15 years ago. She came with a pre-made family of a daughter and 2 boys. Then in October of 2012, she got pregnant. We weren't trying to conceive, but we weren't actively trying to prevent it either. The date of conception seemingly matched up, and a beautiful baby girl was born August of 2013. I have been led to believe until this last Saturday that she was 100% mine, and I never questioned it. But over the weekend, I took our youngest son, stepson, but you all know I see him as mine, to a show choir event and met up with an old friend from around the time of my daughter's birth. A friend I met through my wife. This friend and I had a few drinks, and she said she needed to get something off her chest that she has been holding secret for years and told me everything. I was shocked to say the least. The next day I called and confronted my wife, and initially she denied it, but admitted to having sex with the actual father. I hung up on her, and I had 3 hours to drive home with my son, all the while ignoring her calls. When I got home, she then pulled me aside away from the kids and confessed all. This little girl is my world, and I do not have any intention of turning my back on her. It's not her fault that this happened, but her mother now wants me to try to move past her indiscretion and stay together, stating that what we have built since is strong, and I shouldn't tell my daughter about this as the real father had or has no intentions of being a part of her life. I do not think I can forgive her for this. It's too big. I am so angry right now at her and all her friends that knew but kept silent. I can't leave because I don't want her to state that I abandoned my family. I'm afraid that if I do keep this secret from my daughter, that she will one day find out and hate me for it. If I stay, I can't talk to anyone about it. They will be confused and astounded that I stuck around, and it would make me feel like less of a man. I would bottle it up and let it eat me up, and then rage quit my life. In the comments, wow, she cheated, lied, and tried to pass a child off that isn't yours. I would never be able to look at her again. I would be disgusted by her actions. Of course it's not the children's fault, but I'd leave her ass. She successfully passed off another child as his for 10 years. Yup. If he signed the birth certificate, he's on the hook financially. Sounds like a wonderful, caring, and generous man. His concern for his daughter is a testament to his good character. This was unnecessarily hurtful. Wife is lacking in character. So sorry. If his wife is not troublesome, it's not a huge hassle to get off the hook financially. They sign a document. We did it at a courthouse. Cost was minimal, but it doesn't sound like that will matter to him though. He sees the girl as his daughter because he is a better person than his wife is. Some states don't allow that. In my state, there must be another father to take over the rights, otherwise whoever signed the birth certificate, no matter if DNA matches, is on the hook. If you do divorce her, can you go after her for paternity fraud since she knew from the beginning that you weren't the child's father? However, if the dates of when she was conceived were very close, then there is a possibility that you may be the father, but even if you were, it still doesn't change the fact that your wife lied and cheated on you. Has an actual paternity test been done yet? Yeah, I was gonna say, just because she believes this other guy is the dad doesn't mean that he is, but I think your relationship is unsalvageable. I think there are times in which keeping quiet about a one-time infidelity is forgivable. To be clear, I am a boring monogamous type who has never cheated, but anytime you get involved in an ongoing fling and/or questionable paternity, the only moral thing to do is fess up. What else is this woman capable of? I wouldn't stick around. It's too easy for her to tell you to just move past this, since she wasn't the one who got betrayed. You have all the right in the world to divorce her, and this doesn't mean that you have to stay away from these kids' lives. She not only cheated on you, but she hid this from you for 10 years and never pretended to tell you the truth. She cheated on you even though you treated her sons like yours. Just break, man. This woman doesn't deserve you. Back up to the post, we have an update. My son was at his cousin's house for a sleepover after his event. I went out with my aunt and uncle and the friend showed up at the pub that we went to. When my aunt and uncle went home, I stayed to chat more. Update 2. I have a DNA test ordered. My wife is in search of alternative residence. She wants couples therapy. I considered shortly until more came to light. I commented a few times below that she had been sending likely bio-dad updates with school pictures. Also went to see him 5 years ago and took him to lunch. Update 3, not much else to update today. Waiting on DNA test to arrive, bid a house. We'll have more throughout the week as kids will be gone and we can finally have it out with no tiny ears to hear. We'll record audio for everything. Update 4. Not much to say yet. Actually spent an evening with welcome company. Test is still en route. I live in a small community with no hospitals that provide DNA testing. Test won't arrive until Wednesday. Hope to have results by Friday. And now onto the final update. It's been a while since my last update. I got the results today from the paternity test. 0.0% paternal probability. Initially when I found out from supposed friend, I wanted to go nuclear, ruin lives and the like. But after sitting and giving myself time to cool off, I decided that would only hurt the kids. I still see her as my daughter, but now I have much deeper waters to tread and how and when to talk to her about it. Wife and I will be divorcing peacefully. I won't give up my rights to sue either her or Biodad. Wife did find my last post and spiraled down a rabbit hole reading the comments. Was interesting to see her reactions to the variety of thoughts that you guys shared about her. Now it's time to move forward. In the comments, I know it's not good, but the thought of the ex-wife reading all of the comments gives me a sense of Schadenfreude. Now that you say Schadenfreude, what is the English word for it? Not an official definition, but I understand it to mean the joy you feel when seeing someone fall, especially if you think they've been naughty. Any person who fails to tell their spouse of the true paternity of their child is an evil person. There are no ifs, buts, or maybes in this. They are just deep down a truly vile and selfish individual who cares nothing about their partner nor their child. They are the sort of person who, if they ever mention the word love or commitment, everyone in the immediate vicinity should be allowed to laugh hysterically at the entrenched irony. I'm glad that you are divorcing her, and I'm glad that you're still going to be in your daughter's life, because at the end of the day, you've been raising her, you've been feeding her, and as far as I can see, that's your daughter. Now, as far as her mother, she better get to talking and talking good, because she better get a whole lot of karma. In my opinion, and it isn't a nice one, your wife is evil and a piece of crap. Such a traumatic and cunning lie to not confess to you, make you believe that you were a dad for 10 years. You play the role of a father, and that kid sure as hell is attached to you. But holy crap, that is one evil scheme by your wife. Lamau? She wanted to stay when she was still in contact with the father, and Bio father knew the kid was his and was receiving updates? Nope. Wouldn't be surprised if she was still cheating. The nerve to do something like this. It's funny how awful people can be. They really rely on other people's good nature and would use that trust in such a fashion. So selfish. I wonder sometimes how delusional people are. Do they honestly think that highly of themselves, that anyone with a shred of self-respect would want that? Same. I fully expect that to have happened. That whole behavior is incredibly weird. I'm certain that he is being trickle-truthed. Imagine the nerve to ask anything of someone that you were blatantly using for years. Seriously, no remorse from this person. She never loved OP. Above, someone linked a comment OP got in their first post about how he, OP, was only plan B for his wife. From what info OP has, it becomes clear that wife told her affair of being pregnant and gave him the chance of being a family with her and their baby, but he refused. That's why she decided to fool OP. I agree with that, but would add the following. With her actually still being in contact with that other guy and sending him updates about the girl though, it becomes clear that OP still is only plan B. If she had decided to fully commit to her lie, to permanently stay with OP and keep this family with him going, she would have made that lie her reality. She would try to avoid anything that could cause doubt on the paternity of the daughter. She would definitely not send updates about the child to someone that, to the public eye, has no connection with the kid and was not publicly in her or OP's life anymore. No, she is doing that as a means to keep the door open for her plan A, the other guy. She keeps informing him of the family that he could have. If only he said the word. OP was not the alternative option she chose after being rejected by her plan A. OP was the placeholder that gave her the life she wanted, to be switched out if the other guy ever became willing. I'm leaving my boyfriend over a prank. I'm still shaken up a bit, so if this doesn't make much sense, I apologize. Trigger warning for suicide. I, 18 female, have been with my boyfriend, 20 male, for almost 2 years. I moved in with him late August, and things have been pretty rocky. My whole life I've struggled with my mental health, specifically depression, anxiety, and self-harm. I've been clean for a while though. I also have a history of trauma, but I don't need to get into that. I made sure my boyfriend knew this when we started dating because I wanted him to be able to nope out of the relationship if that was too much for him to deal with. He assured me it wasn't an issue. He never seemed to really get the whole mental health thing though. He would make comments saying stuff like depression is just spicy sad, and people with trauma should just get over it. He also thinks that only veterans can get PTSD. I've tried explaining things to him, but he just brushes me off, so I do the best to ignore him. Recently, he started watching couple pranks on YouTube, and he started pranking me. At first, it was just small things like putting way too much flavor in my water or salt in a bite of my food. I laughed it off. It didn't really bother me, but then he started jumping out and scaring me. That kind of stuff really affects me sometimes because of my PTSD, and I tried to explain that to him. He would apologize, but do it again the next day. I was getting annoyed and frustrated, but I tried to let it be. Things escalated when last week, he put some noisemakers under the toilet seat in the middle of the night. I woke up to go to the bathroom and sat down, and boom! It being late at night, me being half awake, and the loud noise all mixed together gave me a full-blown panic attack. I was on the bathroom floor crying and having flashbacks. After I don't know how long, I stopped crying and was just staring into space, having flashbacks. He came in because I guess he noticed I was gone for a while. When he saw me sitting on the floor, he remembered his little prank and started laughing. I just stared at him for a second, got up, and called him an ass. I slept in the living room for the rest of the night. The next day, I sat him down and I told him he cannot keep scaring me like this. No more jumping out at me, no more loud noises. He pretty much sighed and rolled his eyes, but he said he would stop. Everything was fine for a week. I thought this whole prank thing was finally over. Yesterday, I got home from being out with a friend, actually feeling better for the first time in a while. When I walked in the house, all the lights were off, so I assumed he was still at work, which isn't abnormal because sometimes he works late. I plugged my phone in because it died on my way back home, and when it powered on, I got a notification that he sent me a text. It just read, "So sorry, I love you." I replied saying it's okay, I'll see you when you get home, love you. And I heard his phone ding in the bathroom. That was weird, I thought. I got up to go get his phone, and when I got into the bathroom, I saw him laying in the bathtub. The bath was full of water, there was an empty bottle of pills in the sink, and he was covered in blood. His wrists were cut, and there was just so much blood. My heart just sank. I started having a panic attack. I was hyperventilating, crying, and I was just frozen. After a minute, I ran to the living room to get my phone to call 911, and I hear splashing and then laughter. I turn around and see him standing in the hallway just laughing. He said he got me, and I should have seen the look on my face. I don't even know how to describe the feelings I was experiencing. I was so mad and sad and scared. I didn't even say anything. I just walked out of the house. I just kept walking, and eventually I figured I needed to call my friend to come and get me. At first, I didn't tell her what happened. I just told her that I needed her to come get me, as it was an emergency. She came and took me back to her house where I'm at right now. My boyfriend keeps calling me, and he sent me some texts saying he was sorry, and it was just a joke, and I'm overreacting, and I need to come home. I am not answering. I don't even know what I would say to him. My friend is going over to his house tomorrow to get my things when he's at work. She said I can stay with her however long I need, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I just feel numb. In the comments, what the actual F? You don't even need to get mental health crap to know that pranking someone with a fake suicide is the most a-hole move someone could ever do. And if someone tells you to stop, you do. An a-hole move is an understatement. He actually took the time to think out and prepare the whole scene, which everyone knows is never funny. This guy's an absolute psychopath if he thinks this is a funny prank to anyone. He's for real messed up. It's not a prank at that point. It's emotional abuse, especially since they had previous conversations and he knew something like this would F her up and he did it anyway. Absolutely, especially because she had told him multiple times to stop and he had time to reconsider his actions while preparing something like this. I wouldn't be surprised if he hadn't ever thought about it twice and the prank-free week was time to prepare something like this and get everything ready to prank her. I'm glad you got out. You did the right thing. Creeps like him get worse and not better. Creepy? The bathroom prank was more than that. OP told him many times to stop. He's thinking that's funny and coming up with something worse. No, I know. The guy himself is creepy for doing it. He most likely would have progressed to abusing her in the more traditional sense if she hadn't left. And now onto the update. Thankfully, today wasn't as eventful as I was expecting it to be. I ended up sending my now ex-boyfriend a text saying that he crossed a line and I don't want to hear from him again. I blocked him on everything after sending that, and I'm planning on changing my number tomorrow. My friend went over to his house around noon today with her boyfriend and was able to retrieve most of my stuff without issue. She got all my personal documents, sentimental items, medication, and clothes. The only thing she wasn't able to grab were the TV and Xbox that I paid for, because I'm not sure how I can go about getting those back without him accusing me of stealing them. I'm not sure that the fight is even worth it right now. Before she left, she put my copy of his house key on the kitchen table so he knew I didn't have it. She wanted to unplug his fridge and all his appliances just to make things harder for him, but I told her not to. I really don't want to add fuel to this fire. His mum reached out to me to ask what was going on. Apparently he called her and told her that I had some sort of mental breakdown and ran away and that he was worried about me. I told her what happened and what he did. She was pissed. She said she thought she raised him better than that and that she was sorry that he did what he did. She said that if I need anything, I can let her know and she'll do what she can to help me. I guess his mum told his older sister what happened and she also reached out to me to apologize for his behavior. I wasn't close to her, but I met her a few times and she's a really nice person. She offered to help with anything I needed and told me that she was going to make sure everyone knows what actually happened. I told her it wasn't necessary, but I appreciate it, but she said she wasn't going to let her brother get away with this. I'm not going to argue, so I thanked her. For the most part, I've just been lying in bed today. I'm so exhausted, physically and emotionally. I just wish I'd left him sooner. There were red flags that I just ignored. I guess I was afraid of being alone. I don't know, I'm trying not to blame myself for this whole situation, but I feel like I put myself in this position and this is what I get. I'm not expecting much else to happen. God, I hope nothing else happens. I'll probably give one more update in a few days, as long as things have cooled down. If something significant happens, you'll hear from me. Thank you all for your kind words and your advice. It's very much appreciated and definitely needed. In the comments, yeah, she can help you recover your TV and Xbox. Tell her you paid for them, but you haven't been able to reclaim them from your ex, and let his mother be the one to force him to give them back. She reached out to offer help. Use it. Don't throw away hundreds or thousands of dollars because it would be awkward. Best of luck to you. And OP says, that's a good idea. I didn't even think to ask his mum to get them for me. My mind has been so scrambled today. Thank you for the advice. By the way, assuming you didn't pay cash for the TV and Xbox, you can show the cops the receipt and get an escort to recover them from his house. Might be worth a try, but asking the family to grab them for her is a safer bet. The police anywhere I've lived would have said, it's a civil matter, if they even showed up. That prank would be unacceptable under any conditions. That he did it to someone with PTSD is completely unforgivable. Thank goodness she left him. What a monster. Honestly, this is the exact kind of behavior I expect out of anyone who thinks that only veterans can get PTSD and everyone else just needs to get over it, even when presented with evidence otherwise. I expect it too, but I don't get it. Even if you don't believe something to be true, why torture your partner? Because if it's a sincerely held belief, then they don't believe they are torturing their partner. They believe the partner can't take a joke and they're faking the negative reactions. I don't agree with this guy or people who follow his thinking. Just trying to answer your question.